Thank you so much for joining us on this Monday, the 5th day of February, 2018. Every show gets more packed because time is compressing. We're headed towards the singularity. It is an incredible time to be alive. The Eagles have the big upset win, and the big story behind the story is that it was the binding force of their Christian faith, according to the coach and the players, that had them break the back of the NFL's globalist poison. And that's why all of them unanimously have not kneeled. That's why they've been basically immune to the Hollywood brainwashing. And that's the story behind the story. That's coming up in the broadcast. Also, obviously, we have a whole nother twist on that front. Colts Edwin Jackson, starring linebacker, killed after being struck by suspected drunk driver. And the media didn't get it right nationally. Locally, they did. Liberal media wouldn't say the guy was an illegal alien. Conservative media would say he was from Mexico, deported twice. No, he was from Guatemala, deported at least twice, and illegal alien. And the issue here is they won't say it. When you see somebody run over folks in France or Germany or shoot people or bomb them, they'll say a German man attacked people with a truck today. And then he's been there 2 years. He's a, quote, migrant or refugee. And it's the same thing with that. If you were a illegal alien in Mexico from wherever in the world, say China, the U.S., wherever, and you run over somebody drunk, they'd say, in the country illegally, this individual ran over X. But it's such a unified front all over the Western world for the left to cover up the crime statistics. And the big one with illegals is the serious drunk driving. But it just shows the media controls. We're going to go through all the different sections of that. There's a very illustrative quote and audio file from a podcast he was on, Jimmy Kimmel, who used to be funny, that's turned into a total mouthpiece of Chucky Schumer. He talks to Chucky Schumer, he said, pretty much 7 days a week, but 5 nights a week. He talks to him about what to put in his monologue, what to say, what to do. The Democrats also work with Colbert, you name it. And you can see the talking points there every day. But he's come out and said, libs excel at late night hosting because job requires intelligence. No, we know for a fact that Jay Leno is more of a libertarian, certainly not a liberal, and that he had double the ratings of his replacement, and that he was rooted out because he isn't vicious and nasty. And he's spoken about that. So people that have better ratings than you, I mean, how many other TV hosts, how many other comics have been removed off of their television programs? Mr. Allen last year, the list goes on, because they didn't toe the line, even though he had a hit show. By the way, in talk radio and in the publication world and so many other areas, it's universally libertarians and conservatives and nationalists where you've got to stand alone and really talk for hours and hours. There are not leftists that can ever be successful or get ratings. No one. They all get talking points. They read off teleprompters. They wear fancy suits, and they say the same thing. Saturday Night Live, Nunes is a slave, a rat. Same thing was said on Bill Maher's program. He's a dirty rat. They get the talking point, they regurgitate it, reading off a teleprompter, and then they call that smart, and they celebrate how smart they are. Sorry, I've been to your rallies. I've seen your constituents. They look like they've been shot with a mutation ray. They look like the undead. And everybody knows it. Everybody knows you prey on a giant, dumbed-down, poor population. Now, on the top, the richest people, 3 to 1, are leftist because they're parasites feeding on their slaves. That part's true.
From deep in the heart of FEMA Region 6, Austin, Texas, transmitting worldwide, it's Alex Jones.
The first thing I want to cover out of the gates today is what I'm going to be covering in the next 4 hours. And that is the incredible lies of little Adam Schiff, the ranking Democrat on the House Select Intelligence Committee. Little Adam Schiff, it turns out, was a favorite on RT over the years, even when Obama was in office, saying that the FISA court should be transparent and shouldn't be political, and that their activities should be made public. And this video has gotten basically no attention. It's up on Infowars.com and Newswars.com, an article that Paul Watson wrote. And then we've got videos beneath it of him on Fox News over the weekend and other networks saying there's going to be a new Oklahoma City bombing if you keep making this political. You made it political, lying with DNC funding, and you've been involved, we now know, going to the FISA court, and then having a bunch of Democrat operatives at the top of the FBI and Justice Department sit around and try to keep Trump out of office. It has to come out. It's amazing. You did spy on the president. You guys went all over television starting in late January of last year, so a little more than a year ago, and said on every channel over and over again like parrots until my head was going to explode that there was never any spying on anybody in Trump's entourage, his campaign, zero. Now, they just previously, until January 20th, been everywhere, New York Times, Washington Post, saying we had spying on Trump Tower. We were spying on his campaign. You better watch it, Trump. We've got evidence you're a Russian. They were bluffing. They were hoping there was something there. They had Susan Rice, all of them in the White House, we now know, in daily briefings with Obama, who ordered it, listening to everything they were doing with hundreds of people dialed in. I mean, they had a war room going. Admiral Rogers, on the 17th of November of 2016, when the president had only been in office elect 10 days, not even in office, but president-elect 10 days, went to Trump Tower to brief him and said, sir, you were illegally surveilled. That's why they then, days later, said that was unauthorized. Well, he's the incoming president. That's normal. Then they all called Clapper and Brennan for his firing because he wasn't a traitor. So think about this. They're all over the news in September and October and November, recklessly saying, we know they're all Russian agents. We've been spying on them. Trump gets in, Rogers comes and meets, Rogers explains how it was illegal, how the FISA court 3 times refused it, and they came back with orders from Obama. Rogers explains, sir, you can't release it until you're actively the president, then you can, but you need to know what's happened. Trump becomes president. He's sworn in on the 20th of January, 2017. And then he says, there's a lot of leaking going on. There's been spying on me. It's illegal. And it's going to come out soon to the proper channels. They all lie and say Trump is insane. No one ever spied. Comey goes and testifies no one ever spied on anybody in the Trump campaign or any of his entourage. Mueller says it. Rosenstein says it. Clapper says it. Brennan says it. They all go on television under oath and say, this is insane, close quote. The president is crazy, close quote. Even though they were all on record saying, you watch it, buddy. There's 7 ways to Sunday, the intelligence community to bring you down. We've been spying on you, and we have the intercepts. Remember when Schumer said that on CNN? We have them all bragging until the president goes, you know that's illegal. And you know leaking it's illegal. And they went, oh, gosh, he's the president now. You're crazy, you're insane, no one was spying on you. In a 24-hour period from the 20th, we're on the front page of the paper, wiretaps of Trump Tower prove Russian collusion, Roger Stone's an agent, we have him under direct command under Putin. Totally made up. Like saying he's under direct command of Mary Poppins. Trump goes, you know, that's all illegal. And the next day they go, you're insane, we never said it, it's crazy, oh my gosh. And I know you all remember this, but it's key to get this out to everybody and to take this live video and slash radio transmission, and I'm going to post this later at InfoWars, this little segment, and send it out to your friends and family, because I can't tell you how many people have called me and texted me from Hollywood, media, Congress, you name it, and said, will you send me one of your best videos explaining, because I'm arguing with my wife that there was illegal spying, but she's saying there wasn't, but now they're admitting there was. This is an important topic because they didn't just get the warrants illegally with lies. They didn't just perjure themselves to Congress. They lied to everybody and said they never spied on anybody in the Trump entourage. When you have the Nunes memo, and then you've got the actual 99-page investigation put out last year and got attention a few weeks ago of the Fisa court, where they said it was illegal what was going on. This is their own report to the president saying, sir, this is what happened to you. And you got Peter Schiff fighting to have any of this released because him and Obama are both involved. That's why they're so scared. That's why they're so bug-eyed. It's why they're so desperate, because they thought they would get away with this. They thought Hillary was going to end up being elected. So now Nunes, as Trump said in his cover letter last week, is getting ready to release a bunch of other damning information, because they're not backing down, where they threaten to go after the president physically, where they're getting orders to take him down, where they're talking in text messages about leaking classified information, which didn't even contain treason or crime, but they claim it's a leak, so it makes it one. You understand? And then they're using the secrecy wall to make stuff up and then pass it through, like Comey and others got caught doing. So they want it. It's all going to happen. And see, they can't give up, because they're innately criminal, and they know they're criminal, and their whole system's going over the edge right now. So the next big question is, what are they going to pull next? Because they spied on a candidate, the Republican nominee, president-elect, right through the day he was president, and it came out they had their deep state people still in the NSA, still in the FBI, still in the CIA, and they were still leaking disinfo against the country. It's being reported Nunes wants to publish as many as 5 more memos. What did I say 2 weeks ago? I said, I'm told it's a roadmap for more memos to come out that are going to be extensive with the bibliography, with the fact sheets, with a roadmap. Some of these memos, they're saying, are going to be hundreds of pages long of just text messages. We're going to get this son of a bitch. Don't worry, we're going to bring him down. You know, if we can't find it, we're going to have to make it up. If we can't get him on Russian connections, we're going to say he obstructed justice. We got to get somebody to roll and say that he said something that isn't true. I mean, they've already told the public what's there. I've talked to the sources. You think this other stuff hurt the FBI? What's hurting it is they won't roll over and stop their criminal activity at the Clinton Crime Network. And the media, the globalist media, won't give up. So it's going to have to all come out. It's kind of like your child doesn't carry out the trash, doesn't do the right thing, so you take away extra allowance. And then they don't do that, so you ground them. They don't do that. You got to get serious. You're going to go to military school. I'm going to sign your ass up, ship you off. You get your ass in gear right now. You see, it's the same thing. We're sitting here going, man, listen, we're not going to stop. You're not stopping. And we got the goods on you. You don't have crap. So their only hope's killing the president. That's the bottom line. We'll be back. This is the InfoWar. Spread those links, spread those articles, spread the live feeds, and tell folks about the local stations. It's an act of rebellion.
This is Ad-Free Alex. From the front lines of the InfoWar.
Welcome back. I am your host, Alex Jones. It is Monday, the 5th day of February 2018. Later in this hour, I'm going to drill back into the memos. The Democrats want to put out their own memo. You've got Nunes saying he's got 5 more big memos that absolutely devastate Comey, Mueller, and the rest of them. And, of course, I covered yesterday multiple congressmen have come out now and called for criminal indictments against Comey, Rosenstein, McCabe, and others because they've been caught in the text messages and in the memos and in the communiques saying it's political, saying it's to stop Trump, saying it's to stop him in the election, then to remove him once he's president-elect, and lying to the Fisa court and not telling them that it was politically motivated or where the money for the so-called investigation came from. That is serious fraud upon the court. That is serious fraud upon the American people. Representative Paul Gosar calls for criminal prosecution of former top FBI, DOJ officials after release of Nunes' memo. The Republican from Arizona has a lot of courage, so we're going to be getting to that as well. But that said, I look at all of this news in front of me, and I wanted to just let you know some of the other news that's going to be coming up that I will cover today. The Islamicist behavior is sickening. And to watch the Islamicists wedded to George Soros and the universities and the modern leftist systems and modern leftist countries and cities, and to watch them allowed to commit unspeakable crimes with wanton abandon, and to see it covered up and protected, and then to see the parallel where illegal aliens can shoot a woman in the back, have been deported 5 times, and the jury virtue signals and doesn't even give the guy manslaughter. Think about that. And you see these cases constantly. You see the case coming up after the break of the Colts, Edwin Jackson, star running back, reportedly killed by an illegal alien, and the media won't even say he's an illegal alien. The Indianapolis Star talked to the police. They know the guy's name. They know how many times he was deported. They know everything. But all the rest of the media can't even get it right. Conservative media, the Washington Times, says he's an illegal alien from Mexico. No, he's from Guatemala. But that's why I go to the local paper, because they can get there on the ground and actually check the records, not just make stuff up like national media does so many times. It's really incredible. But NFL.com, ESPN, Huffington Post doesn't even say that the guy was from another country. It says, oh, the Indianapolis man, the Indianan. It's like when you see an Islamicist who just got in the country a month before, runs over 50 people, 100 people, 200 people, up to 300 and something they ran over. It was 100 and whatever killed. And they say, oh, the Frenchman ran them over. The German man ran them over. Yes, the German. Under that political correctness, if I went to China, got in a delivery truck, ran over a couple hundred people, including children, and imagine they'd say on the news, a Chinese man no, it'd be a crazy American, came over to China, stole a delivery truck, and ran over a couple hundred people. It'd be a big novelty. It'd be a big story. You know, like when you get 2 weird, mentally ill Christians, and they've got dozens of children, some 23 years old, living in feces, and it's Christians, homeschoolers. You're all guilty. Well, if Christians are all guilty, then we should at least know if it's an illegal alien or a Muslim, shouldn't we? But no, we're going to beat it over your head. So here it is. Without even looking today, there's just stacks of this crud. Paris massacre terrorist complains about Islamophobia, claims Muslims are mistreated. Paul Joseph Watson, Infowars.com. Somewhere, someone is playing the world's smallest violin. Paris massacre terrorist Salah Abd Salam, the man who helped jihadists butcher hundreds of people, is now complaining about Islamophobia. He's on trial for the shootout he and Belgian police officers had after the November 13th, 2015 attack. He is not expected to stand trial for his role in the Paris massacre, including 130 people who were killed and 368 that were injured in the Islamic attack, just like Vegas. The Belgian-born French national Moroccan descent is accused of driving the terrorists to their target locations and helping them manufacture explosives. The 28-year-old said Muslims were judged and treated in the worst ways mercilessly and said he was placing his trust in Allah before the judge, and he went on into Islamophobia and the rest of it. So there you get it. You know, hey, I only helped kill 130-something people and injured 368, but you know what? You deserve it because you didn't kiss my ass good enough. And let me tell you something, that's all they do in Europe is just run around worshiping hordes of military-age men. I got another article here today. Britain is the destination for Islamicists from all over the world because it has the highest welfare, the most open arms, and lets them have radical imams calling for the overthrow of England. And there's quotes. And now British schools are saying we just may make all the kids wear burqas. Isn't that just darling? Here's another one. More than 5 million third world migrants entered Europe since 2011. Yeah, it's 10 million total. And it goes on. Voice of America. It's just from, people say I'm Russian controlled. Sometimes I link to Russian articles. Well, here's Voice of America we link to. It must be run by the CIA. The latest figures from the European Asylum Office reveal the period between 2011 and 2017, 5,136,000 plus migrants have entered Europe. And they're almost all men. Here's another one. German politicians alarmed at the scale of anti-Christian hate attacks. Attacks on churches and Christian symbols accounted for a quarter of the 97 documented cases, and attacks on Christians have doubled worldwide, even according to the UN, in the last 3 years. Meanwhile, UK-based imam performs Islamic exorcism on screaming burqa-clad woman, spits on her, and smashes a table on her head. And then there's this footage. There's this footage of Women's Fight Club that they put all over the British news like it's a great thing. And it's a bunch of women screaming like toddlers and rolling around, basically urinating on themselves. And it's advertised as the avant-garde thing to do. And they yelled about how oppressed they are and how hellish it is. And it turns out most of them are filthy rich, triple-barreled, people worth hundreds of millions, running around screaming and bitching. And Paul breaks down who the real feminists are worldwide. We'll play that key report straight ahead and then tie it into how similar it is to the Islamic woman wearing a full beekeeper suit with the worst acting I've ever seen, acting like she's possessed. I'm not saying you can't have real possessed people. I've seen it. It looks like Linda Blair. This lady ain't it. We'll be back. Stay with us.
This is Ad-Free Alex.
Ad-Free Alex. Ad-Free
Can you fight him? يعلمون الناس السحر سحر 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 يعلمون الناس السحر يعلمون الناس السحر سحر 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 يعلمون الناس السحر يعلمون الناس السحر.
You're looking at an imam on national television. This is broadcast in England. This is very popular. In his little military outfit, with his mind control slave, this woman who has full hoods over her head where you can't even see her eyes. And then he screams at her and spits on her and hits her. And it goes on and on. We'll come back to him spitting on her and hitting her in a moment. But this is the total fruitcake lunacy that is dominant Islam. And you can argue there's been periods in Islam where it was not like this in many areas and was actually quite productive. There were some golden eras. No, this is Orthodox Islam, and they argue that this is their Reformation. It's because Christianity had some issues the way it was being played out and used in the Dark Ages to suppress people, so we had a bunch of wars and other things in Europe that killed millions, and that then led to the Reformation. And there were other big wars to exterminate Protestants, and then Protestants would kill Catholics, and on and on and on, to what we have is the Reformed Christian church today that you could argue is a lot more like what Jesus Christ taught. A lot of it's sold out in establishment as well. But if you go back to the Dark Ages, if they caught you gathering herbs because it would make your child not die of the bubonic plague, they would burn you at the stake. Because a man or a woman wasn't supposed to know any knowledge, only the people in the castle. And that's what Islam has turned into, is a total suppression system. And it needs a reformation. And it oppresses its main target, other Muslims, which then governments bring in by the millions and let the Muslims sit on top of as political blocs that will vote 100% as they're told by their imams. That's why the authoritarian left love them so much. And I was covering some of this earlier, but Paris massacre terrorist who helped reportedly kill over 130 people and injured 368 says he's upset about Islamophobia and Muslims being mistreated. And then it continues here. More than 5 million third world immigrants entered Europe since 2011, almost all Muslims. German politicians alarmed at scale of anti-Christian hate attacks. And what I just mentioned from Breitbart, UK-based imam performs Islamic exorcism on screaming burqa-clad woman in Sheffield Mosque. And I saw this. Paul Watson, by the way, is from Sheffield in North England. He lives in London now. And it made me think of Paul's video yesterday that shows what they call Women's Fight Club. The video is a must-see if you're a radio listener. It's posted at Real Alex Jones on Twitter and Prison Planet, Paul Watson's Twitter, and, of course, at newswars.com. and Infowars.com, and I thought that we would just preface that and then go to the video itself, because the tempered tantrum screeching is much like the bizarre mental illness theatrical display we're seeing from the poor woman that you can bet your bottom dollar has had her genitals cut off. And so Paul, in this important video, breaks down what's really happening here. He breaks down what the real threats are here. And you get around these modern feminist women, they are basket cases who all come from wealthy families, pretty much, who are trying to one-up each other on who can be more bizarre, more crazy. And it's all about not having males around. And so it all has an extreme anti-male, anti-family bent, which, by the way, I have stacks of news articles here today from mainstream news documenting everything I've told you so far. Gender-bending chemicals found in plastic, a link to breast and prostate cancer found in 86% of teenagers' bodies. Daily Mail. Not just a boy and girl, some teens identify as transgender. No children because of climate change. Some people are considering it. New York Times. See? That's the agenda. They're now admitting exactly what I told you. But here's Paul Watson's special report. We'll go to break after that and come back.
This is a space where we can recognize that we're angry.
Oh my God.
We want to destroy the Conservative government. We want to bring down the patriarchy.
So the first rule of Feminist Fight Club is talk about Feminist Fight Club.
I mean, isn't it awful how all these bigots stereotype feminists as being fat, angry, ugly misfits?
God only knows where they get that idea from.
Before the fight, I always think about how angry I am. I think about the man that catcalled me on the street.
I'm sure you get catcalled all the time, love.
My name is Phoebe Beatty-Ferguson, and I founded FemFeral. We fight each other as a mode of resistance to try and channel our energies and our rage.
So you've got a triple-barreled name and you go to a prestigious London university. Yeah, you don't sound very oppressed to me. You sound like another privileged, entitled, inherited wealth snowflake. Let me do a little mansplaining about real feminism. Real feminism is risking arrest and torture for removing your hijab in public. Real feminism is marching in the streets against a theocratic tyranny. Real feminism is strapping on a machine gun to kick some ISIS ass. You, rolling around in a basement in your sweaty underpants while screaming incoherently, that's not real feminism.
When you feel like empowered by the numbers, actually, like, yeah, it feels like you can go out and smash them or something.
Now, like, forgive me for being, like, frank, but, like, the only thing you should be smashing is the Weight Watchers weekly meal plan.
I have experienced, like, moments of a lot of, like, suppression and repression. Or not moments, but, like, a lifetime of that, actually.
That they have been oppressed and are very oppressed.
Really? A lifetime of oppression? You? Really, you? With your plummy accent and your leisure time spent painting your face while rolling around in a cellar in some upper-middle-class hipster enclave, let me do a little mansplaining about real oppression. Real oppression is having your genitals mutilated to fulfill the dictates of a backwards belief system. Real oppression is being subjected to constant death threats for trying to renounce a religion that kills people who try to leave it, and overcoming all this to escape a ghetto in Somalia to become one of the most influential women on the planet. That's real oppression. You being triggered by a Sargon of Akkad video, that's not real oppression.
It's difficult to be, like, sexy in specific spaces without being sexualized.
Yeah, preventing it from becoming sexualized may have been made more difficult by the fact that someone's drawn a giant on the wall. Now, I'm no fan of Theresa May, but if she wants to get re-elected, this should be going in her campaign ad. So you want to fight the patriarchy by removing Britain's first female prime minister in 2 decades and replacing her with a man from a party that in its entire history of existence has never had a female leader. A party that organises political meetings where women are segregated to appease an actual patriarchal belief system. That's how you're going to bring down the patriarchy. Somewhere in there we hear a muddled argument about drawing attention to domestic violence, even though every study shows that lesbians are statistically far more likely to be violent than heterosexual couples. Not that I'm saying any of them are lesbians. I mean, is it any wonder that just 7% of people in the UK identify as feminists, when even members of Vice's hardcore audience is saying it's cringy? Chances are it's cringy. How do you think the vast majority of young women are going to react when they watch this? If you really want to bring down the patriarchy, why aren't you encouraging women to get STEM degrees? If you really want to end the oppression of women, why don't you draw attention to countries in the world where women are actually being oppressed? Theresa May and the Tories aren't stoning women to death for violating Sharia law. Theresa May and the Tories aren't passing laws that legalise marital rape. Theresa May and the Tories aren't instructing police to round up women if their headscarf slips.
She broke Islamic dress code.
We live in a world where grid girls are being eliminated. And this.
Lawyers for General Mike Flynn to call for case to be dismissed over corruption at the FBI. It's known as poison of the poisonous tree and fruit of the poisonous tree, because the whole thing was a fraud. It was political. It's admitted. They lied to the Fisa court. They lied to Congress. The whole thing is coming crashing down, and they bet everything on it. The plan was, and they've stated this in their own establishment publications, Atlantic Monthly, New Yorker Magazine, New York Daily News, you name it, Financial Times of London, the Rothschild-owned Economist. They said, we're going to prove that the election was run by Russians, and we're not just going to say that the president stole the election and that that election will be reheld, but this time overseen by a special group that Obama put into Homeland Security with an executive order. We're going to unseat everybody in Congress. Every Republican that won, there'll be a new election on that front. And then they said, and we're also going to then target Americans that are known to be promoting Russian propaganda. And you've seen through the year since Trump won the election, the year and 4 months, that they now sent out letters last week to 600,000+ people saying, you work for Russians, you're a Russian bot. People got lawyers. They got folks to look at their accounts. And Twitter had to say, actually, none of them are Russians. It was real stuff. But it didn't stop Adam Schiff from sending out letters to Congress and letters to Facebook and Twitter and YouTube and Google saying, all of this is Russian bots. Don't let anybody criticize the committee. This was just 2 weeks ago. Don't let anybody criticize the chairman on the Democrat side. The chairman's Nunes, but the Democratic leader. Or we'll say you're a Russian agent. There it is. Dianne Feinstein and Adam Schiff claim Russian bots and trolls are behind hashtag release the memo. And so 600 and something thousand of you that put that out, you are now suspects too. And I thought about the clips I played over the weekend. Maybe I should dig those up and play them again, where they got a congressman on accusing Tucker Carlson, again, of being a Russian agent. In fact, cue that up if you can. It's the last minute. So here is the Democrat congressman, attaché, protege of Nancy Pelosi. Here is Nancy boy on there And understandably, Tucker Carlson doesn't usually, act like he gets mad. If he gets mad, it's real. And, you're getting called a Russian agent. For 6 minutes before, he's saying you're hurting America, releasing this memo undermines things. And then we have video coming up after it of Schiff on RT 3 years ago saying we need to make the whole Fisa thing transparent and it doesn't need to be political. So a complete turnabout. So that's coming up next. But here is a congressman. Again, they've told Rand Paul he's a Russian agent. They've said I'm a Russian agent. Never any proof. Here it is.
All Americans, including my children, less safe.
You continue to support the idea that we should give suspects in criminal cases the evidence against them before we ask them any questions.
Well,
you also believe that there's nothing wrong.
I don't support that. I do think we should give them the benefit of the doubt, as the Constitution requires us to. Call me a liberal. When have I said that I think that we should give evidence to? I'm not even sure what that means. By the way, I think people charged in a criminal case have the right to the evidence against them, don't they?
Do you think?
Wait,
well,
so are you aware of that?
Not when they're being questioned, Tucker. Yeah, Tucker, not when they're being questioned, not when they're under suspicion. Do you think it's a problem?
Pause again. They set up a special counsel by Rosenstein, who set up the group with McCabe and with Comey. It's all documented now, to go after the nominee, then president-elect after that. They're the ones that are under suspicion, but they open this blanket thing up that includes Tucker Carlson and Senator Rand Paul and Alex Jones and the president, his whole family, and now 600,000+ Twitter users. You're all under surveillance. You're all suspect. You're all being watched for the hashtags you put out. You're all under suspicion for working for Vladimir Putin when it's Hillary up to her eyeballs in it. And then now these criminal cases are going, and there's no evidence there. There's no Russian collusion, so they just expand the dragnet, wanting to overthrow the country, wanting to still have this coup d'etat by special counsel. That's what it is. It's a rogue Clinton FBI special counsel coup that's politically been caught, engaged in fraud, in leaking, in perjury, in absconding, and Schiff trying to block the release of all this stuff. It's criminal like nothing I've ever seen, so ridiculous, so naked, so brazen. And this little smart mouth, arrogant person, they practice acting arrogant. They practice fake it till you make it. You know these people, they're the worst. Representative Swalwell is jeopardizing national security, says Tucker's jeopardizing it. And when that isn't enough to bully him, well, you're a Russian agent. Let's go back to it.
Evidence in the Russia investigation. Do you think it's a problem that they were sent evidence in the Russia investigation when they are subjects of the investigation?
Pause again. Yeah, the former head of the NSA, well, still head of the NSA at the time, Admiral Rogers went to the president-elect and said, sir, they did this illegally. And Fisa wrote a 99-page, the court said it was illegal. They put a memo out about what you guys did. Absolutely it's good when criminal activity is going on by a rogue group in the FBI and the Justice Department to go to the president and show him. Absolutely. See, we're fighting back. You're not used to that, are you? Let's go back to it.
Click there.
What in the no?
Donald Trump and
maybe
Don,
I would.
Don
but
McGahn.
in the case of today's memo, what specifically have I espoused that empowers threats to our country?
You're peddling the narrative that the Trump administration is putting out, which also is the Putin narrative, because they're retweeting this with their Russian bots. If you're on the same side as WikiLeaks and Putin,
I wonder, do you perceive
if you're on the same side as WikiLeaks and Putin, you should take a step back and wonder, whose bidding are you really doing?
I don't even know what to say. I don't want to explode on TV, so I'm just going to end the segment now. Let the record reflect
I'll see you next week.
Of working for a hostile foreign government. We'll be back soon.
And the reason Tucker's so mad is he knows that sack of garbage knows none of that's true. He's not just imputing your honor. He's part of the evil group that actually works for the Russians or had been paid off by them and the Chinese and others. Now, they put out a CIA report, Democrats did, that in it mentioned that I'd been on RT before. So that meant I was a Russian agent. That's their proof. Well, Schiff's gone on there a whole bunch. This is from Schiff a few years ago on there, saying he's got problems with lack of transparency at the FISA court Now he's saying the exact opposite. The article's on Infowars.com. Here's the video.
Meanwhile, on the other side of Capitol Hill, in the House of Representatives, efforts continue there as well to inject more oversight into the NSA's surveillance programs and the top-secret Fisa court. One of those members of Congress leading the effort is Adam Schiff from California. He joined me earlier, and I asked him how his reforms to the Fisa court will protect America's First and Fourth Amendment rights.
Well, I think they'll have the cumulative impact of making the FISA court much more transparent so the American people can understand what's being done in their name, in the name of national security, so that we can have a more informed debate over the balance between privacy and security. I think this can be accomplished while also maintaining sources and methods and not compromising some of the very real national security concerns at stake. It also will mean, in terms of the appointment of FISA judges, a more diverse set of judges than those that were chosen by the Chief Justice alone.
Yeah, that means Obama people got put in.
That vetting process of Senate confirmation.
That's good. So that's him going in and actually having Obama take over the FISA court, but saying it's for transparency and openness and to release stuff. Now he says don't release anything or you're a Russian agent. So there you go. Just briefly, when you financially support us, it makes
How mild, how mild, how mild can a cigarette be? Make the Camel 30-day test and you'll see. So mild, so mild, so mild that you're bound to agree. That Camel suits you to a T, to a T. Smoke Camel and T.
You know, each week the makers of Camels send free cigarettes to hospitalized servicemen and veterans. This week's gift Camels go to Veterans Hospitals Boise, Idaho, and Topeka, Kansas. United States Army Air Force Station Hospital, West Overfield, Massachusetts, and the United States Naval Hospital, Quantico, Virginia. The Camel people have now sent more than 190 million gift Camels to servicemen, servicewomen, and veterans.
This is Ad-Free Alex.
Ad-Free Alex. We have a very special guest joining us in the third hour that is a national television host, but also a political scientist, well, a leading political scientist in Russia, to give you the Russian response to what's going on in the world. And the accelerated move towards war with Russia, one of the only failings of the Trump administration, but one that if it goes wrong could end life on this planet. So that shall be extremely informative. I also intend to open the phones up to get your take on the Super Bowl behavior, on the illegal alien reportedly killing the Colts Edwin Jackson, and the media tried to cover it up. On gender-bending chemicals found in plastics linked to breast and prostate cancer are found in 86% of teenager bodies at high levels. Ooh, mainstream media reporting that. But first, let's go to this report. MSM gaslights America.
Regardless of what the Mockingbird media may have told you about the Nunes memo details, that media continues to desperately gaslight America into looking the other way.
All right. Do you feel like you know more or less about the safety of Robert Mueller's job?
I feel as confused as I think most Americans do right now. I think it feels a little bit like, you know, when you're in the supermarket and there's music in the background. It's there. It's a constant noise, but you can't quite make out the song.
Yeah, it's called You.
Hashtag release the memo was way more important than the actual memo. When I was reading that memo, I thought, okay, what was the big news here? What exactly am I reading?
We have seen the blowing of a lot of smoke this week. The smoke will dissipate. I mean, Mueller is going to continue with his investigation.
The goal here really isn't to find out the answers from the FBI. The goal here is to undermine the FBI, discredit the FBI, discredit the Mueller investigation, do the president's bidding.
But I don't really understand how any of this is important, so I'm just going to treat this memo like every other memo I've received at work and completely ignore it.
The president of the White House think that by saying we support the masses of the FBI, but we oppose in strong language, the president's talking about basically corruption at the FBI today, but we oppose the leadership. The workforce is going to look at this and say this is an attack on our ability to conduct an investigation with integrity. There's hundreds of agents and analysts working on this investigation. It's not just Christopher Wray, the FBI director. So the FBI people, I'm going to tell you, are ticked. And they're going to be saying, I guarantee it, you think you can push us off this because you can try to intimidate the director? You better think again, Mr. President. You've been around for 13 months. We've been around since 1908. I know how this game is going to be played. We're going to win.
The memo has no impact on the Russia probe.
Not to me, it doesn't. And I was pretty integrally involved in the drafting of it.
Rosenstein or McCabe. Those are the names that will be burning your ears as the truth is gradually ripped away from the spin. Rod Rosenstein gave the Steele dossier the DOJ seal of approval by signing off on at least one FISA application to surveil Carter Page. The Daily Caller reports Bruce Orr's wife was employed by Fusion GPS to assist in the cultivation of opposition research on Trump. Orr later provided the FBI with all of his wife's opposition research paid for by the DNC and Clinton campaign via Fusion GPS. The Orr's relationship with Steele and Fusion GPS was inexplicably concealed from the court when it was used to obtain a surveillance warrant. And Andrew McCabe, after stepping down as deputy director of the FBI, is now being held accountable by the FISA memo claiming that McCabe had knowledge that no surveillance warrant would have been sought from the FISC without the Steele dossier information. Although still secretive testimony by McCabe may refute this claim, regardless, McCabe was knee-deep in anti-Trump territory. Now the facts are laid bare. What to do with a cabal taking on the most powerful office in the land? All due to hubris-riddled, power-mad-driven, pure partisanship. John Bound reporting for Infowars.com.
That imitation is the most sincere form of flattery. And when I imitate someone, I do it because I think they've done a great job. And I think they've been very thought-provoking. And you have to understand, usually they're also imitating somebody else and then improving on it. So a lot of times the crew, they'll say, well, college reform already did that, where they went out and read Trump's tax reform plan but said it was Bernie Sanders. And then 99% of people said, oh, it's a wonderful, wonderful plan when they thought it was Bernie Sanders, but really it's Trump. Just to show how they're dumbed down, they're biased, they're not informed, they don't know what's going on. And whether it's California or whether it's New York or whether it's areas like the University of Texas, we don't go down there to show that they're stupid to get off on it. We do it because it's frightening. And you go to a conservative or libertarian era, you go to their areas, half the people will actually catch on to what you're doing and be aware. The other half will say, hey, I'm too busy right now. Get that camera out of my face. Or give me more information. What group are you with? Now, exactly, again, they're just canny. They know what's going on. But you go talk to liberal areas, and it's like they've been hit between the eyes with a sledgehammer. By the way, guys, I don't know if I asked you to do this. It's audio. He was on a radio show. Will you guys get this? Kimmel Says Libs, Excel at Late Night. Host because of job requires intelligence. And we ought to play some clips of the random people at Democratic Party rallies. I mean, they really make you want to cry how stupid and how brainwashed they are. But getting back to this, college reform goes out every week and shows this. They'll go out and say the Bernie Sanders plan, but really it's the Trump plan, or they'll go out and say, hey, we've got State of the Union quotes from Trump. And then they say they hate it because it's Trump, but then he tells them, no, that's actually Barack Obama. Trump could be handing out free $1,000 bills. They wouldn't want it. I mean, it's like Mark Dice goes out. We've done it too. We try to hand people free gold coins, and they won't take it. Here's a $1,000 gold coin. I'm going to give it to you. No, I don't want that. And first he'll start out, I'll give me $5. I'll give you this $1,000 1-ounce gold coin or whatever it is at that time's cost. And they just shake their head because they're so ignorant. They don't know how to even look at a coin and see if it's real or, whoa, that's heavy. They don't know how to bite it. They don't know. They just think you're trying to give them a flying saucer or something. And that's really it. They're domesticated. The one thing you need to know about so-called modern leftists is they're not real classical liberals. They're super followers. They're super scared. They're super sheltered. They're unhealthy. And they're dumb. But they are crazed and want to run your life. They're like a pack of dangerous lemmings. So I'm going to get into Kimball coming up in the next segment. But right now, I wanted to play college reform, and I'm going to have one of the crew, whether it's Millie, Owen, whoever wants to go, just go back down to UT or go back down to South Congress and just sit there and, say, listen to horrible, Trump State of the Union, and then give them Obama quotes. And just like where college reform did this, where they did this, New York, it'll be exactly the same. And you're like, what happened to these people? But the big story isn't just that when they hear it's Trump, they hate it, even though it's Obama. Trump means it when he says these positive things about America and is doing it. Trump's surrogates go out and promote what Trump said at the State of the Union. Obama would say a lot of good stuff because he's the good cop. And then his surrogates go out and say America's inherently evil, America's inherently bad, America's the worst thing ever, since gonorrhea or since cancer. Your kids don't belong to you. Christianity's bad. Veterans are bad. Police are all bad. Demoralization. You can't have your churches. They said that at the State of the Union last week. You see, his surrogates do one thing, and then he comes out and says another until he is talking to Democrats. He's like, we'll get these bitter clingers, their guns and their Bibles. We're going to get them domesticated and break these families up, and we're going to make sure they don't have cars or air conditioning. And by the way, if they think they built their businesses. They didn't build their businesses. Or the WikiLeaks, Hillary, these damn baristas, man, these people, I hate my scum followers. They're all a bunch of slugs. But I guess we made them that way. And then the top professor who's advising her goes, ma'am, we just need to intensify. They're not listening to our message, but at least we can cause culture war. She's like, yes, send me a file on that. And culture war is black on white. And now we have their memos doing it. And you turn on MSNBC or CNN, I mean, that's like science fiction or something, how you'd cause a race war. I mean, you tune into it, and it's so evil, it's so naked, it's so ridiculously obvious, but you got to remember, they got those audiences slowly building them up with the BS, titrating the poison until the average person gets bit by a 10-foot king cobra, they roll over and die in 5 minutes. But if you've been building the dose up for 20 years like a snake handler, you can get bit, you kind of get high off of it, and maybe your teeth fall out or something, but, you still live. And it's the same thing. These people are like zombies because they bought into all this craziness, and it just gets wackier and wackier. What they're being fed to keep them on the plantation has gotten so crazy that now they're believing all this, so they're like in a virtual reality, totally whacked out. And that's why Brian Stelter and all of them keep saying we're in a virtual reality. Those of us that are countering them, because they know they're there holding the fort with a bubble, a force field of idiocy over what they've got left. Let's go ahead and go to this Students Hate Trump's State of the Union.
I'm Kevin Phillips with Campus Reform. Today we're at John Jay College getting reactions to President Trump's State of the Union address last night. We're going to give them a few quotes from the speech and ask their reaction. Except the quotes we're giving them are actually from President Obama's State of the Union addresses. What will they have to say? Let's find out. So I have a few quotes here from the State of the Union. I want to get your feedback. First, talking about ISIS saying, quote, we need to call them what they are, killers and fanatics who have to be hunted down and destroyed. What's your thought on that?
Well, first off, ISIS is fake. It's something the government made up so they can continue doing what they want to do, which is world domination.
Donald Trump should, mind his own business and, just focus on America because he's the president
of the
United States, not...
We're going to have to come back and play the rest of this. Back it up. Some leftists are actually super smart. And that's why I didn't used to call myself a conservative or a liberal, because the liberals had some good issues like decriminalization of drugs, and then the right wing had some good things like pro-Second Amendment, right to life, stuff like that. But I didn't like the Republican blue bloods. That guy actually gets that ISIS was made up, but by Hillary and Obama, and Trump said, back that up 10 seconds, please. Trump is the one that said Hillary and Obama created ISIS and turned them loose all over the Middle East, and CNN promoted them as good guys. Remember that? So he's still an anti-Trump guy. They come back to him. But it doesn't matter. Trump and the Russians, that's the only Russian collusion there's been that predates Trump, cleaned them out. Russians did like 90% of it. But so the guy gets that right, but it's Obama that did it with his cousin Odinga. Let's continue.
Well, first off, ISIS is fake. It's something the government made up so they can continue doing what they want to do, which is world domination.
Donald Trump should, mind his own business and, just focus on America because he's the president of the United States, not of the whole world.
I feel like that's a very strong statement. And when you say something like that, it kind of makes you, a target.
Or if you're a threat to this country, we're going to get you for that. It's just ridiculous.
Next up, talking about the general world stage, saying, quote, when you come after Americans, we come after you. It may take time, but we have long memories and our reach has no limit. What's your thought on that?
Well, I don't think that's a good way of handling something.
All right.
It's like he doesn't think...
When we come back, the exciting conclusion when they learn it's Obama. But see, that was just his rhetoric versus him resupplying them, giving them the weapons, creating the name, winding it all up, and that's been declassified. Then we'll get into Jimmy Kimmel. He says working Americans who aren't on welfare are stupid.
Defending the Republic from enemies, foreign and domestic. It's Alex Jones.
So they've taught the modern, domesticated trendioids, I wouldn't even call them liberals. That's how we identify them in the common vernacular semantical parlance. They believe they're fighting for their very existence. They believe they're being destroyed by thousands of big companies being incentivized to come back to the U.S. For colleges to actually teach curriculum that gets them a good job. They think having sovereignty and having free markets bad. They believe being victims and being part of endlessly divided, balkanized, atomized, desperate, alone groups controlled by their local factotum, their local potentate, they believe that that somehow gives them power. And then they're all taught everyone outside of the bubble is dumb. That's why Google, Twitter, Facebook, Amazon are all building bubble cities. They don't just look like bubbles. Some areas are domed bubbles. But dome cities where it's all connected, hundreds of structures, enclosed parks, you name it, where you're all in a community like yourself. They have a name for it. It's called a cult. So this is the type of dystopia many sociologists and psychologists say is coming. And of course, they're doing it in the Middle East. Not just from the climate, but that's what cults do. So, ladies and gentlemen, we get back to the campus reform video where they hear what Obama said, but they tell them Trump said it, they're against it. But then when they hear that Obama said it, they suddenly like it. Students hate Trump's State of the Union quotes, but they're Obama's. And it's always the same. That's how Mark Dyson go up and say, we're going to put all the Jews in concentration camps for Obama. And almost every person signs the document on the beach in L.A., because if it's for Obama, you got to do it. They'll do anything. And these are people that speak English. We're going to put the gun owners in forced labor camps, and we're going to kill some of them. Okay, yeah, it's a great idea. It's time to take these people out. It's like a well-spoken guy saying this because it's all about their power. And they sit there and they watch these channels And they really believe we are Nazis out to get them. And then their main patron, their main supplier, their main funder, their main god is a true, actual, bona fide, certified, documented, lettered, admitted, self-confessed, unapologetic, dyed-in-the-wool psychopath who spent hundreds of billions of swindled dollars trying to take over the whole world, crashed more than, 15 economies, bankrupted countless nations. When I grew up, even watching PBS when my mom was cooking dinner, I first heard about Soros as this international criminal in the late 80s trying to crash the British pound. I mean, back then, they were on him. He was a guest. But he's like, I do not apologize. I'm allowed to do whatever I want. But then by the day, it's like, how dare Alex Jones call George Soros a Nazi? He fought the Nazis. You're watching Anderson Cooper. Surprised they don't show him like in a Captain American outfit. Yeah, Soros fought with Captain America and the Hulk. The Incredible Hulk. And, of course, Hulkamania. He fought with the Hulkster as well. They all fought Hitler. It was actually George Soros that climbed into the bunker with a knife in his teeth and stabbed Hitler when he was 16 years old. He went, die, Hitler! No, he went on 60 Minutes and said, I am not ashamed of how I survived doing it. I would help round up the Jews, my fellow Jews. His dad wrote a book about it. And then again, they're defending it. They think that's tough. They want a Nazi in there. The average mutated, hunchback, leftist weirdo likes evil. They like dirty things. Their hottest porn is torturing animals. And I mean, you go to what the left's into, man. They're into nihilism. They're not the left. They're a bunch of wimps living on the back of the country in bubbles who then are pissed at everybody else when they peer out from their meth haze from playing 20 hours of video games a day, and they see upright, strong people that aren't completely crushed by this sick culture, and they think there's the enemy. Let's continue.
He doesn't think before speaking and how it's going to offend a lot of people.
He should be careful because there's other countries out in the world that has like automatic weapons and, nuclear bombs.
I mean, he's got small hands, so I don't know about his reach. So.
And finally talking about China, saying China wants to write the rules. That would put us at a disadvantage. Why should we let that happen? We should write those rules.
I wouldn't mess with China.
He's over the top in general, so it's par for the course.
It's like everything is out the window. Like, China.
I guess the way that he approaches things is very aggressive, and that's not the best way to approach situations.
What if I told you that all three of these quotes were actually from President Obama's State of the Unions?
All right.
Full of aren't you?
What's your thought? Are you surprised?
Kind of, yeah.
It's actually crazy to hear that.
I think there's a bias against President Trump when it comes to hearing a speech like the State of the Union.
Yeah, I do think there's a bias.
I guess bias is really bad in general. Just because you don't agree with it doesn't mean it's not right.
I am definitely not a huge fan of him. However, I think, being closed-minded is probably more dangerous than anything he could do.
Some people are quick to judge on Donald Trump just because a few things he say. But I think if they paid attention to his whole presidency, maybe they'll have a better outlook on him and a better perspective in general.
Because unfortunately, a lot of times what you hear is tainted by bias, and you really can't go off that. So do your own research, educate yourself. It's your duty. It's the future of the country.
That is a smart crowd compared to a lot of them. But when you look at the hidden Veritas camera videos and the others that have come out in the congressional hearings, they sit up there and they go, number one mission, stop InfoWars and stop the president spreading his information. Yes, sir, we were on it at lunch. The heads of the companies, sir, we're on it at lunch stopping Paul Watson. And then last week there were all these Southern Poverty Law Center and George Soros articles from Media Matters and Right Wing Watch going, look, the last week they've had 3 top Facebook trending and they've had a bunch of top Twitter, and they're like, some of the headlines were like, Zuckerberg's been caught again. Twitter's done it again. And these articles have headlines just chewing them out. Maybe try to pull some up during the break. It's like Zuckerberg drops the ball. Zuckerberg's got some explaining to do again. He's openly censoring, having people arrested in Germany that don't go along with the Muslim invasion, working with Pakistan to have people arrested that, say they don't believe in Allah. And, you know, he's like bent over to every authoritarian regime there is on the planet. And they're just chewing him out going, look what you did. And then Facebook's like, we'll ban him quicker. We will. We're sorry. We'll stop him because they don't want me to sit here and play these clips. By the way, if I was Campus Reform, they do a great job. But after they do their interview, I would then actually show the clip of Obama because he did say those things. Just so you can see it for yourself. All right, we're going to go to break. We have the Kimmel clip. He says, you're dumb. And this is so important. Because if you understand this, you understand all the angles to it. Because when they talk about how we're in an echo chamber, they know it's the opposite. And they're desperately trying to keep the very, very sad people that are under their control still on their little plantation. I mean, you heard that one guy say it's BS. Obama, you know, never said we're going to take out ISIS. He likes ISIS. Well, the truth is he does like ISIS. He helped create them. But just these people just don't know what they're talking about, though. We'll be back. Stay with us. Wars.com and newswars.com as well as prisonplanet.com are our main sites. Thank you so much. Again, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to go ahead and get to some news clips here. And then later, I'm going to get into Jimmy Kimmel because I'm not quite ready to get into that yet. I was working on another story during the break. Got here a minute late, and that just spoiling my mojo. I think I'm doing too much during these breaks. I think I'm going to have to stop doing work during the breaks. I try to multitask around here, and I figured out that's what's frustrating me. That's what's derailing me, and I'm not going to do it anymore. If I don't have the info on something, I'm not going to wait a minute to do it once I get on here. I'm just psychoanalyzing what sets me off and then ruins my day. You know, most talk show hosts, they sit there and they practice what they're going to do. They script everything. They have a bunch of guests, a bunch of clips, a bunch of news, and you're not really hearing who they are. You're hearing what I really think and what's going on here on this broadcast. There's nobody telling me what to say or what to do. The problem is that has its own downside because I have probably 50 articles that I actually looked at or read, a couple hundred more that I haven't even gotten to. They're all incredibly important. And I tend to get caught up obsessing over how weird and brainwashed the left is instead of just moving on and exposing the big issues and what the globalists are doing and kind of just get up above the clouds from, you know, down there in their false reality and really get up there in the halls of Elysium where the globalists see themselves operating politically as a breakaway civilization, completely separate from what they're up to and what they're doing. So that's coming up. But I will get into Kimmel because we have the audio now of him saying, you know, you have to be a liberal to be a talk show host because conservatives are all stupid. And the reason I want to get into that is it's illustrative of the overall elitist attitude. And it's also illustrative of how those shows have up to 100 writers, and it's all completely scripted. Even the pre-interviews they do with the folks that get there 2-3 hours before to script what they're going to talk about with the actors for 6-minute segments. I mean, to sit there and produce something like this and then say that conservatives couldn't do that is asinine. But that's all they've got is their so-called elitism, and we are defeating them. Now, before I hit some of the other really important news here, dealing with the chemical warfare against the population and some of the other big breaking news that's on InfoWars, Infowars.com, and the big announcements of how they're planning to censor the population. See, they've been engaged in lots of pinprick censorship for decades, and now they've accelerated it, hoping you become punch drunk, and when they come out with hardcore total censorship, people just accept it. So there's been an acclimation phase going on, and here's just one of the headlines. And I mentioned this one because it's excerpts from the Wall Street Journal, but the Wall Street Journal is behind a paywall. This is out of the Next Web. Hold on to your tinfoil hat. Hold on to your tinfoil hat. Alex Jones YouTube is coming for you. Oh, they're coming for me, but hold on to my tinfoil hat. I said they're coming for our free speech. They already are. And when they openly announce that I'm the #1 target, that ought to tell you something. We're on to them. We're over the target. Even though I'm right, still hold on to the tinfoil hat. So we're going to be talking about that. And we're going to be talking about twice deported illegal drunk driver kills NFL player on Super Bowl Sunday. It's why we have InfoWars. Because I have the anatomy of the media lying and saying that he was an Indiana man and a U.S. citizen when he was a twice deported illegal alien. So we'll not just show you our article. We'll show you the anatomy of how they lied about it, then got caught, and then had to have a tiny correction. And then we'll show you how we boiled it all down in one article. Because that's how they do, and they cover it all up. And again, it's part of an agenda of trying to keep us dumb. Because if we're not genetically dumb, if we're not predisposed to be dumb, if nature didn't make us dumb, well, nurture, big old hammer upside your head of disinformation, it certainly will. And that is the big brass ring here. It is, keep you in the dark like mushrooms and feed you Bravo Sierra. And I, for one, am completely and totally sick of it. So we're going to get into Kimmel first, then into all of that absolutely important information. Before I go any further, though, it's the plug of the hour. You know they're out to get us. You know they're trying to shut us down. I'm going to do a tour this week, I think with a live video feed, but with lights and everything, so it looks professional. But I want to do it live. Unannounced, I think, too. I'll just pick some time in the afternoon or the morning to march around here and then compare it to previous videos I've done over years past, to the 2 new studios we're building, the 25-plus new people that are here, the equipment everywhere, boxes everywhere, engineers everywhere, you name it, satellite uplinks going in, whole 9 yards. We are full attack. President told me, keep it up, don't back down, press the attack. We're going to win. I'm going to press the attack. I'm going to bust my ass. We're all going to work together. Men like us, we understand destiny. We're going to win. You feel the energy in the country? Yes, sir, Mr. President. I feel the energy. We're going to combine our energies together. We're going to win. And the energy is going to get even stronger, isn't it, Alex? Yes, sir, it is. Don't you know that scares these demons? They want us low energy. They want to break our spirit, break our will. It's like the Lord of the Rings analogy of wormer, grime tongue. You know, in the ear of the king, got him under a spell, or I'm too old to get up. I can't even walk. 2 weeks later, he's killing 1,000 orcs. That's what's happening. The spell is lifting, and people like Chucky Schumer and other hunchback demons like Pelosi, they know their time is short. At a big heating and cooling factory for home use, appliances, and where they are expanding the factory and bringing more of their production back to the United States from overseas. I just saw some images of Trump piling off out of Air Force One and making his way there. But right now, let's go ahead and go to another report. Let's go ahead and go to the deep state is on its knees, and then I'll come back and I'll go to the Jimmy Kimmel report saying that you're stupid, and then I'll get into the other news that I have here. Twice deported illegal drunk driver kills NFL player on Super Bowl Sunday. Now let's go ahead, though, and get into this report, because I want to remind folks this is happening. The deep state is on its knees. Here it is. We got a lot more we're going to give to Congress that will dwarf this if the Democrats and the globalists and the corrupt people at the top of the FBI don't roll over. If you don't roll over, and if you keep having this war to try to stop the recovery and all the rest of it, we got everything on you, Jack, just like our military source, Zach, was saying.
There's 2 factions in the United States. There's legitimate government that's being ran by the White House right now, restoring the American Republic and the Second American Revolution. And then there's the deep state, the generational, just toxic poison that's been in the White House and been in our intelligence agencies for 20, 30, 40, 50 years. And literally the Donald Trump administration is combating that in patriots and generals and people within the military and within the private sector have been waiting for this. We needed to actually have the capability of doing this, and Donald Trump has given us that opportunity to do this.
They got everything, all of it. And if you want to play hardball, let's do it. Soros and all of it, just keep pushing. No one stood up to you. You had a Republican leadership that you were in bed with before. You're facing opposition that now has the presidency, most of the states, and most of the courts. You will be defeated. Only a nuke attack, taking out the president and the Republican leadership like they could have done at that West Virginia event, with the whole situation. I mean, they shouldn't all be in one place at one time. I don't think that's smart, unless the Democrats are there as well. And they still might wipe out their own people in a sacrifice. I mean, these are serious people we're up against, okay?
I continue to be much more concerned when it comes to our security with the prospect of a nuclear weapon going off in Manhattan.
It is exactly what we knew it would be. It is a codified indictment of the compendium of what we know, with the Democrats organizing this fraud to stop Trump from becoming president. And then once he was elected, to try to remove him from the presidency. A classic conspiracy, and we have their text messages, we have witnesses, we have all of it.
One can go back to November 17th of 2016, when Admiral Mike Rogers, head of the NSA, broke ranks, made an unscheduled visit to Trump Tower. You've covered this. Met with Donald Trump. And in that meeting, we don't know, of course, what he said, but certainly the effects of what he said were clear, because the next day, Donald Trump moved from Trump Tower, again, as president-elect, to the golf course in Bedminster, New Jersey, because of what Mike Rogers said. And basically what Rogers said, and I'm speculating here, is the fact that, hey brother,
and again, he didn't give a heads up. He went there to report the treason.
That's right. And then right after that, of course, you saw Clapper and others calling for Rogers to be fired because of the breaking ranks. But all the roads lead right back to Obama, and as well as the parallel roads lead back to Clinton, because with Hillary Clinton as well. I just have to mention this: Hillary Clinton, using a private server, set up Barack Hussein Obama in the White House, communicated from Russian soil on a private server to Hillary Clinton while she was in Russia.
You're not seeing anywhere in the media, as usual, what this is. It's a threat from the president to them that we have you by the short hairs. You better back off right now. And we've caught you in perjury in Congress and to the Fisa court. And I keep repeating this because it's bombshell. All roads on illegal spying lead to Obama, and we know that. And we know it's blacked out in the FISA warrant request. And the fact that they've been stonewalling on this is going to blow up in their face so incredibly bad. By the way, the biggest thing that I've been intending to say in the last week here on air, I haven't gotten around to, but so I have time to do it, I'm going to do it at 6 after in the third hour. I have had, I'm going to tell some of these stories, prominent Democrats that I know, prominent liberals that I've known for many years, come up to me and apologize and say, wow, Trump really got spied on illegally and people need to go to jail for this, and this is scary. And some of these people are pretty high up in the Democratic Party in Texas, and they just didn't believe any of this stuff was going on. And they're now coming to me and calling me, and I had lunch Saturday with a couple of them, and they are not laughing anymore. And some of them are prominent lawyers, others have been in government, and they're more Dixiecrat type guys, and they are really freaked out at this point. So the sinking ship is sinking, and people that weren't rats, but people that thought, you know, that I was exaggerating, they're now really starting to get religion. Now let's look at the curious case of Jimmy Kimmel. Jimmy Kimmel once hosts the Man Show. I know people that are friends with Kimmel. They told me years ago that Kimmel's a listener and likes the show. He's done friendly skits making fun of me. He's also done some threatening skits, you know, that I still thought were a joke, but in hindsight, I don't think are, now that he admits he gets advised by Chucky Schumer every day he's on air and by other Democratic leaders with talking points. So when he says, hey, a message from the New World Order, we're going to kill you, and, you know, then he simulates shooting me with a gun, I take it serious. And now Kimmel's gotten really, really nasty. And he was on a talk show. We're going to play a clip of it here. And he basically said that libs excel at late night hosts because a job requires intelligence. Well, here's the problem. You have an army of writers. Some of the shows have upwards of 100, normally about 15 full-time writers. And you can look it up. Kimmel's no different. They get up there, they read off a teleprompter in their monologue, most of it written by somebody else. They've got applause lights. They've got someone telling people to applause. It's scripted. They script the interviews with the guests that come to a great extent, on the phone with producers days before, then for hours off and on beforehand. I mean, I've been with friends out in Los Angeles and gone along to tapings of stuff with Leno, you name it. And Leno's more of a libertarian, and he's come out and said it's nasty, it's wrong. He had double the ratings of people like Kimmel when they got rid of him. But he wouldn't get nasty. And he's come out and talked about that. So Kimmel is a mercenary teleprompter reader. And it's a classic leftist statement that there's no conservative talk show host on late night TV because they're too stupid. Well, you've had lots of conservatives with hit TV shows and hit late night programs and hit you name it, and they get knocked off because they won't play ball. That's admitted. Hollywood won't tolerate Taylor Swift because she won't come out and attack Trump. She's just neutral. So that statement is unbelievable. You are a part of a cult monopoly, Mr. Kimmel. You are part of a group that bullies anything that doesn't agree with its worldview. And you're trying to bully the rest of the country, and you're getting your ass politically handed to you. So you just keep your nose up in the air as an arrogant SOB, and you sit there and get your talking points from a slob, a schmuck like Chucky Schumer, and you just keep dreaming, because America is awake to all you elitist scumbags. Here he is.
Also just so happens that pretty much every late-night talk show host is a liberal. Go figure. And that's because it requires a measure of intelligence. Now, not a ton, not a tremendous amount of intelligence, but you do have to be over the baseline.
Sure.
So there you hear him on a podcast with, I guess, some of audio to his audience they didn't release because they have hours and hours of taping before they cut it up and put their program out. It's called Pod Save America. So that's their attitude. That's their worldview. That's what they think of you. And just like leftist media, when an illegal alien runs over and kills NFL starting linebacker for the Colts, the media doesn't tell you he's an illegal alien until you go to the local police report in Indianapolis. That's where you find it out. Because, again, they think we're dumb, and so they think they can lie to us, like Gruber with the whole Obamacare scam. He said, thank God Americans have no attention span or so dumb. Well, you know what? We're smart enough to know you're a slime bag selling us out. And he'd been deported twice. We'll be back with hour number 3. Stay with us. They taped this podcast that we were just mentioning that Jimmy Kimmel was at in front of a studio audience, like where I guess he works on the comedy he's going to go out and use against the general public and with all the ideas that Chucky Schumer gives him. But that said, this is what these people think of you when they call you flyover country and better clingers and all the rest of it. And what a cloistered, sheltered dunce he is. That they got rid of all these people because they wouldn't be nasty in their comedy, including Conan O'Brien, who still goes and pulls stunts now, trying to get back in the good graces of the globalist. But he had a contract dispute. But especially Jay Leno, who had way higher ratings than these guys, and they got rid of him. Leno's talked about it because he wouldn't get nasty on either political party. But now that's part of this radicalization process. So extremism and defensive liberty is no vice, to quote the late, great Barry Goldwater. But I saw a clip I wanted to play, and I noticed a clip in the article in the Daily Caller for some reason didn't give it credit, but I thought, I know that guy. I think I was on Mancow's show with him in studio once, and I was amazed because I remember the name, all the imitations he could do, and then I could never remember the name, wanting to get him on myself. So when Matt, one of the producers, was showing me this clip, I thought, man, I know that guy. I want to get him on. It's John DeMonico, best Trump impersonation yet, local D.C. commercial, features fake Donald Trump, Cypress air heating, cooling, and fireplaces. And, again, you can make fun of somebody, and it's fun, and it doesn't have to be nasty. That's why I love it when they make fun of me. They figured this out with the Super Deluxe channel that Time Warner has all, it's like their top 5 videos ever last time I checked are me. We're talking 10 million, 20 million, 16 million. Their other average videos have a couple 100,000 views. And I'm talking about Facebook where they have, like 20-something million on one of my videos. But the point is that as soon as I said I loved it and it brought us all these new fans, they messed with the audio and screwed it up and took it offline for a while. So it just shows how the establishment doesn't know how this stuff boomerangs back in their face. So I love it. Keep trolling, keep attacking. My children, not just at their private school, but when they go for sports at the local public school, and I'm not bragging, it's just a bellwether, everybody goes crazy like a rock star arrived, and everybody runs up saying, I want a photo with Meme Man. And then a lot of them are politically awake now because of the Meme Man, because I'm known as the Meme Man. I guess I'm the second biggest meme only after Trump, because most people have like one big meme or something, but then it goes away. No, we are thousands of memes, legions of memes. But enough of that. Let's just go to John DeMonico, who I think is a lot better than a lot of these Trump impersonators. Certainly better than Alec Baldwin. Here it is.
Melania did not kick me out of the White House for installing coal-burning fireplaces. Fake news.
Mr. President.
Why are you throwing balls at my face, Kirk Cousins?
It's Kirk.
That's what I said, Gerd.
Never mind. I just saw your tweet. You look pretty upset.
Well, you read my defense perfectly. Melania says these old-school fireplaces are dirty, and I'm turning the White House into an asshole.
Forget the mess, Mr. President. Just come with me. Clean, efficient, natural gas fireplaces from gasfireplaces.com.
Do they do deals?
Deals up to 80% off for President's Day, installed in less than a week.
Wait a minute. I'm a president. 80%, that's almost as high as my approval rating.
Whatever you say, sir.
You know what? I know deals. This is a tremendous deal. I got to tweet this.
Forget Twitter. Just go to gasfireplaces.com. Cypress Air is the best.
Sneaky Alex stole your job, so I'm making you Secretary of Offense. Now, prepare for fire and fury. You like that, Kirk Cousins? You like that?
Mr. President, that's my line.
No, you've been trumped.
We'll be back, folks. Stay with us. We got some big guests coming up. You'll want to stay with us. I'm going to get into it when we come back from break. Afa Nasiev is going to be joining us, a top TV host, one of the top TV hosts in Russia, also a political scientist. He's going to be getting into the latest attempts to overthrow Russia and attempts to get President Trump to be tricked into war with Russia. And we're going to meet the Playboy model running against Putin for president, whose father died mysteriously when he was pro-Putin. I tell you, the Stockholm Syndrome isn't just in Stockholm, Sweden, my friends. So that is coming up, ladies and gentlemen. This poor lady's being funded by Soros and others. But we're going to look at all of this with a top political analyst on the other side. But aren't the Russian ladies pretty, though? I mean, that's quite a nice export when they move over here. Why are we at war with Russia now that they're Christian and conservative and have twice the resources of African continent? That's why Trump is a capitalist and he's licking his lips. Let me tell you how you get to Russia. You go in there with free market and it's over. And it'll be like a man and woman climbing in bed together that have babies and are happily ever married. That's why the globalist hunchbacks up there on D.C. are crapping their little britches, because we're on the same parallels. We're lined up the same geography. Russia helped both times in the founding of our country. And then our own globalist liberals went and colonized Russia in 1917 and crapped all over it. And then had their greedy little globalist hands around their necks for 80-something years. And then now Russia helped us after 9/11. They helped us take out ISIS. And now Trump's moving troops onto the border and sending heavy weapons to Ukraine. It is a real, real shame. And, you know, I know why Trump's doing it. He's very hawkish. He respects the military. And you can see kind of a globalist view of Russia's got nukes. They're an adversary. You've got to be strong. You got to encircle that threat. Don't just think you can make deals with them and then hope they won't use that to the advantage against us. Russia has signaled for 15 years plus they want economic development and they'll kill the weapons. But see, Hollywood and the left and the globalists, they've said they don't like the having babies, being Christian. They don't like that. They want, just like MSNBC said at the State of the Union, they said, you don't talk about churches and you don't talk about families. That's a bygone era. You don't get that anymore. That was put out. I'm not going to play it again. We've already covered it probably 20 times since last Tuesday night. But that's the attitude. We're going to take everything you've got. And that's what globalists do. They make you poor. And they're in a race to make you poor. And Trump is in a race to get wealth into the country. And he's expanding a very dangerous bubble to do it. But it's like somebody's already dying. One of my good friends died. He was 33. He looked like an angel once he was dead. But he was fighting for his life. Organ failure from infective bacteria he got from a small surgery. And Ryan Baxter. And he was sitting there fighting for his life. I was there when he died. And his dad was driving down from Dallas, racing to see him. And they came in and they said, look, he's gone already. They said, we can give him this adrenaline, all the rest of it. It may kill him right now, but it'll bring him back up for maybe 20, 30 minutes. So you guys can say bye to him. He was gone, coma. We said, hit him with it, because his dad was pulling up right as they spoke. Hit him with that. His eyes came back. He said he was ventilated, but he was saying, like, I don't want to die. He was there. He was like, and all of a sudden, 10 minutes later, he passed out again before his dad came in. And I sat there with him fighting for his life, sitting there like that. And that's what Trump's doing, man. He's just injecting adrenaline, just hitting us, going, trying to get our heart going. And all the Democrats and all of them are trying to pull his hands off, and they're fighting him. But we've got a chance to get the engine going again, and pop, 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 a bunch of black smoke comes out, but we can get going down the road. We're not as far gone as my friend was. And Trump hadn't used all the adrenaline yet. You know, we're starting to come back, and the little gremlins are in there trying to suck our blood and bring us down. And Trump is loading up the big syringe, man. And it's like, what are we going to do? Because it may make us have a giant heart attack, may blow the whole economy the other way. I know exactly what Trump's doing. And he just wants to bring America back and prove it. So he's like, fine, you want Russia? Move the troops in, send in the weapons, attack them. That's still not enough, is it? But we have nuclear war with Russia that won't be in America anyways. So I know exactly what Trump's doing. He's got U.S. advisors, and they're helping the Ukrainians in street battles with the Russians right up against the border with Russia in eastern Ukraine right now to prove he's not a Russian agent. When you got Hillary Clinton, all these dirtbags are the ones that were on the Russian payroll, because they will come buy you off to get your uranium. What do you think the U.S. does? Every government does this. The difference is the communist Chinese are the real threat, and they're the ones derailing the trains. I've got that from multiple sources. They're the ones EMPing and shutting down the ships, and they got freighters nearby that then ram them that are under Communist Party, Chinese Party military flags. They don't even hide it. So we're at war with China right now. And China owns Hollywood, and it's just, I mean, that's why last year, not this year, but last year, Davos, they sent the Chinese president, never been there, and he said, I will defeat Trump. I will defeat America. We will bring in world government. These are quotes. And Juncker, the heir to the Nazi fortune, his dad was the right-hand man of Hitler, the actual power behind the throne that funded the whole deal. That and the Mengeles were involved as well. Oh, they didn't just let Mengele go for no reason. He was German royalty. And so is Juncker. He's related to the Queen of England, all of them. And they shook hands and pledged, and then Juncker, after the meeting, said, we'll stop Trump. Remember, it's in January, right after he got sworn in. He goes, we will defeat America with China's help. I mean, you'd think the Nazi heir with the Nazi collaborator Soros with the communist Chinese dictator that sells political dissidents organs are on TV saying, we will defeat America. America's done. The Chinese century's here. And Europe's done. We're bringing in Muslims. You'd think every American would turn aside from their dumb politics and say that's wrong. But no! Because nobody's telling them but us. And they know if the word gets out, finally it is. Even in Bezos's Washington Post, they're catching communist Chinese government intelligence agencies. They caught them basically running the University of Texas engineering department. That's DARPA over there. Oh, yeah, they caught them running the DARPA facility underground. They got nuclear reactors. They got, I'm not even get into what I've been told they got over there. And I've confirmed it as well. They got it all. And it's all funny to them. And so we're totally penetrated. We got the communist Chinese on our backs. They're on their own people's backs. We got Hollywood, Democratic Party scum, cowardly blue bloods that are in the Republican Party that only care about themselves. But here comes Nunes and a few other people that are willing to fight. And President Trump, and the tide turns just like that. And then we've got all these other articles here. There's a Kit Daniels article up on Infowars.com. Study reveals science behind soy boys. Gender-bending chemicals found in 86% of teenagers in Europe and the United States, turning men feminine, turning women hyper-feminine, and accelerating breast cancer. Yep, there's your source. Women would think, oh, a bunch of extra estrogen and stuff, I'm going to be super feminine. No, it accelerates your aging and gives you cyst on your ovaries, gives you accelerated endometriosis. I mean, they're talking like I've told you in studies, a 40-year-old woman in the U.S., on average, has got like an 80-year-old woman's uterus. And her breasts are like a 100-year-old woman's. You're like, well, they don't look like it. No, the cellular mutations are. Because you're drinking glyphosate, sweetheart, and it's going to turn your man into a woman. It's going to turn you into dead. You understand? It's going to turn your man into a woman, and it's going to turn you into 6 feet under. And that's all mainstream news. AP, Reuters, Daily Mail, you name it today. Next year's news today. Next decade's news today. And I'm not proud of that fact. We're just stating the facts here and fighting for humanity. Because, I don't want my 3 girls to die like this. I want the glyphosate banned right now. Television. I don't watch a lot of British television or German TV, but and I recognize this guy. He's all over national television. He's a journalist, TV host, and head of political department at Russia's first independent pro-Christian conservative political TV channel. Previously worked for RT and currently authors and hosts the show Russian Answer, a daily digest and analysis of the most important political news. As political scientist, his interest in European, U.S., and Mideast policies and studies. He specializes in European regionalism and populism. He's a guest speaker at political shows, including BBC, TRT in Turkey, M6 France, as well as Russian International Affairs Council. He regularly lectures on geopolitics, media warfare, and political philosophy. And before I go to it, let me say this. They have said, because I've been on RT, that I must be a Russian agent in Congress. Adam Schiff has said that in a report they put out. That I was in there, that I've been on Russian TV. Schiff's been on RT more than I have. We played clips of it earlier. So this idea is keep us apart. Don't be diplomatic. Don't talk to each other. That's what causes wars, and that's what cults do. But then expanding on that, Trump's big failure, even though I admire him, he's a nationalist, he's a patriot, he has been pushed into weapons to Ukraine, even though his platform at the RNC said he wouldn't, encircling Russia, not giving Russia credit for being 90% of the takeout of ISIS. And that's the one area Trump, who normally can't be bullied, is being bullied, and it's because it's the neocons, the military-industrial complex, not just Hollywood, the media. It's that combination that's doing it, and it's endangering our world, while China has hundreds of times the influence. That's admitted domestically in Hollywood and media, universities. The Washington Post admits every major state-funded university has been penetrated by the Chinese intelligence bureaus. And I'm not looking to start a fight with them. The point is that they're the main ones putting the propaganda out, so that, that's using, I guess, art of war stuff. While we're busy fighting with Russia, they're taking over the entire planet. But enough intro by me. That's where I stand on this. I see Russia becoming Christian, conservative, cutting taxes, coming back from the dead under the same globalist liberal brainwashing exported from New York and London in 1917. That's what I see as someone who's never been to Russia but studied history. And I see them coming back from the dead, as we hopefully will come back from the dead without having to go through the nightmares that Chucky Schumer and others would put us under. So I'm going to try to shut up and let Andre, from his own perspective, big picture, where Russia is, who they really are, versus what we hear about in the media. Because, again, I see from studying the real Putin, trying to stabilize the country, trying to stabilize families, the opposite of Hollywood. And a lot of big Hollywood people have said Hollywood hates Russia because it's Christian now and not like their little plaything when Bernie Sanders went there in the 70s for his honeymoon in the middle of Moscow when you couldn't go there if you weren't a godless atheist, you know, whatever. So again, the left wants to persecute Americans like they did in Russia. They want to persecute Christians. That's my view. Am I wrong, Andrei Afanasyev? Is that correct or is that wrong? Fill us in on the big picture.
Alex, thank you so much. Yes, my name is Andrei Afanasyev, and I'm really happy to be with you and with your viewers, the InfoWars team. So, of course, you're right, and we've been covering the U.S. policies for very long. I've myself been an international journalist for almost 10 years already, and I can tell you that we know really more about U.S. here in Russia than you know about us, and that's a big problem. And I can tell you that judging by the events of the last couple of years, I can tell you that U.S. now is in a state where Russia was in 1917. You know that in 1917 we suffered a terrible revolution, and our people was technically conquered by a group of radicals called Bolsheviks. They were fanatics, ultra-leftists, and for more than 70 years we've been suffering from this. And what we see now is that U.S. and Trump is trying to fight the very same issue. U.S., to my mind, is on the verge of this happening really, really seriously. I'm not talking about that all the population of the United States is under control, but definitely, as you said, the main infrastructure, the propaganda instruments, the financial instruments, of course, are definitely not in hands of American people. And the thing is that for more than 70 years, for the period of Soviet Union, Russia was not defending its national interests. It's very, very important. The Soviet Russia was working and defending for the globalist ideology of Bolshevism. And our people and the old peoples of Soviet Russia, the 300 million people, were working for that, were some kind of a owner of a parasite. And we managed to get rid of it in 1991. We also suffered a lot of turmoil, the collapse of the Soviet Union. We lost a lot of territories, but still we managed to preserve ourselves, our sovereignty. And I can tell you that U.S. seems to me like in process of also spitting out this parasite. At least a lot of people have woken up, as I can see now, judging by media, especially independent and fair media like yours. And I can see that also with the victory of Donald Trump in late 2016, we see this process of fighting against this parasite, against inside American society. And it seems to me that it's a tough fight, and by now, here from Moscow, we cannot tell who will win. We hope that the real people, the real Americans, the traditionals, the Christians will win. But the events of 2017 say that it's a tough fight, but we support you.
Wow. Again, I've just read Solzhenitsyn's writings, but also a lot of mainline writings and studied it. It's very clear, it's mainline history, that a bunch of liberal Bolshevik communists couldn't overthrow Germany, they couldn't overthrow England or the U.S., so they got together with big financing by J.P. Morgan and others and went over and overthrew Moscow only, kind of like Antifa, got control of that, and then expanded out for decades before they got full control, then used the might of Russia, its resources and people, to then persecute Poland, Ukraine, expand all over, expand into Cuba, and do all this while being directed by groups in London and the U.S., and even George Orwell went public before he died and said this and apologized and said, this is horrible, we've got to stop this. But this big secret has been kept from the people. And so what you're saying is, and it's true, the U.S. is trying to pull out of Bolshevism before we fully go into it, and the nightmare ride that you and your Russian ancestors had to endure.
Yes, definitely. And we must understand, as I say to my students, that the world now is in a state of, as I call it, global civil war. It means that technically all the world now, with the technology and with the globalized informational infrastructure, is a battlefield of ideas. And it's a fight between globalists that support the idea of global government controlled by financial elites and traditionalists and conservatives, Christians, who you can call us whatever, people who want to preserve their national identity, people who want to live according to the rules of
Hold on, stay there. This is so powerful. And you're hearing what is on national Russian TV. That's why they're so scared of Russia, folks. They're awake. Afanasiev is our guest for the rest of the hour, 5 minutes of the next hour, before we have our other guest host joining us. We talk about riveting information. That'll be Doug Hagman, always doing an amazing job with all of his intel on what's really going on. Russia had multinational global interests, big banks that financed in 1917 less than 10,000 armed fighters to go in, a lot of them World War I veterans who happen to be of Russian ancestry and other ancestry, to go in, Russian speakers, kill the police, the military, tell the rest of the country, we're going to have a peace deal, just turn in your guns. It took them a couple years to even get control of the areas around Moscow. He can correct me as a historian, a political scientist. I'm not a Russian, but I've studied it. And then they just start taking over, killing the Christians, slaughtering, I mean, just raping. They told Lenin, they said, sir, we've already killed millions. How many more? And he goes, I want terror. He would look at maps and go in this town and kill all the Christians. Go in that town and kill all the Christians. Go in this town and kill all the Christians. They said, why? They've all submitted. They said, I want blood. You can hear Bernie Sanders almost like, I want to teach them. And so you got the floor for this segment. The next, you repeat what you were saying as you got cut off by the break about how there's a global civil war versus nationalist, free market, populist, just traditionalist, and this global mega control combine that is like Bolshevism 2.0, but the big mega banks and mega tech companies, in their own words, operating as authoritarian technocrats, the new robber barons, just as the robber barons financed the takeover of Russia and then used Russia in the exploitive phase to take over much of the world. Now we see them in a fit that all over the world, as the internet they wanted to use to control us, is used to expose them. So let's talk about what's happened in history, what's happening now, this meet the Playboy model running against Putin for president. We'll get into all that as well, but please go ahead and break it down for us.
Yes, thank you, Alex. So first of all, we're in a state of a global civil war, as you said, against between globalists in support of a global liberal market and controlled by the global government, and nationalists, conservative traditionalists who just want to live their lives as their fathers did on their land and not attacking and fighting with each other. So, and the thing is that in the whole world, in any country in the world, there are now these two camps, but there are different shares of such people. And for example, Europe is almost totally controlled now by these people politically, but the people of Europe, or I mean, ordinary people, some of the military servicemen are usually populists, and we see now that in some countries, for example, in Eastern Europe, in Hungary, Czech Republic, Slovakia, Poland, now Austria, we see populists, pro-nationalist, pro-sovereignty governments winning and forming the majority. In Russia, I could say that the share is 80 to 20. 80% of Russians of any level are in support of national, rational, sovereign government.
Is it fair to say Russia is the most awake country in the world of the globalist?
I could say so, because we suffered most. I can tell you that today is a date that 100 years ago, the first Orthodox bishop was killed by Bolsheviks. It was February 5th of 1918, right after the Bolsheviks came to power. So the first thing they started, as you said, was destroying the Orthodox Church and killing all the priests. For 15 years, they killed 120,000 priests, only priests, out of all 150,000. And by the middle of World War II, or Great Patriotic War for us, we had like several bishops left out of hundreds. And the persecution of Christians, the radical, the violent persecution finished, I think, only after World War II. Because during the World War II, the Bolsheviks understood that the only way to win is to ask for support of church, because people still, under their reign, under their government, were Christian and were traditionalists. According to census of 1936, it's during Stalin era, 20 years after the revolution, still 37% of all people in Russia said that they were Orthodox. You must understand that these are 37% of all nation that were ready to suffer and go to prison for that. It's not like just an anonymous census. People come to your place and say, do you believe in God? Yes. And you just can be taken to a camp and never go back. So that's the point. Even in such times, 37% of people were brave enough to say that. And the point is that now in the world we see the same. We see how Christians and Christian values have been oppressed. We see how anti-Christian lifestyle has been promoted in media, in films, even in video games. And now in a lot of countries it has been promoted, and it is being promoted in schools, even in kindergartens to children. So it's something that the majority of Russians cannot tolerate. So that's why we chose another way. And the interesting way, an interesting thing about current America, Trump's America, is now that it resembles Russia of 1999 when Putin came. Because from 1991, after the collapse of the Soviet Union, until 1999, Russia also was not sovereign and independent. It was under control of liberal globalist kleptocrats. Just the oligarchs who, after the collapse of they were ex-communists. Most of them were ex-members of Communist Party. And then in the beginning of 90s, they just shifted and changed their ideology and became not communists for communist economy, planning economy, and became super globalist liberal oligarchs that started.
Oh, it's on record that Western companies lined up to just come use the Russians and others like total slaves. And then they would use, again, the Russians to march into nearby areas and use them as slaves. Then Russia gets the blame. The globalists don't, just like they use America to go out and build empire. And then America gets the blame, and our vets that die get the blame, but not the people up in the big ivory towers who then fund the very movements hating the country when they're in command of it, using it to do the bad. So they know how to put the country in double pressure.
Definitely. They work like a typical parasite. They need a body to operate inside. They cannot form their own army, at least by now, thank God, of globalists. They infest different societies, different groups of people, and make them do whatever they want and whatever they need. So, and when Putin came, things started changing. I can tell you because I remember it. Putin came to a country that were at the brink of a total collapse. And we were in a state of a civil war in Chechnya. This war also was instigated and funded from abroad, from globalist institutions and their networks in the Middle East. So Putin came, and the first thing that he did, he stopped the civil war. And after that, he gathered all the oligarchs. It was a very famous, so-called picnic outside of Moscow, and said, okay, now the rules are different. You either become like national businessmen, or we will work with you. And
stay right there. When we come back, we'll talk about this, because as you said, when Trump said, I admire Putin, he's strong for nationalism, when he did, it's admitted Trump is using the blueprint that Putin used to take the country back, turn the country back on, line up the oligarchs, get the ones that join him that would, go after those that wouldn't. And so when they talk about Russian collusion, it's only in the blueprint of Putin that there is collusion. There is no real collusion except in spirit and action from the already successful blueprint, with Russia now leading the world with nationalism against globalism. That's the only true collusion, is in diagram. When these new blockers up claiming that everything's state-run and that InfoWars is state-run, I'm going to have to sue them over this. But here's an example. Hold on to your tinfoil hat, Alex Jones. YouTube is coming for you. And they say, we're shutting down state sponsors like RT and Alex Jones that works for them. It's like learning I work for the Antarctic post office or something. It's just crazy. So we'll talk about how they're going to strike back and how the globalists hope to win this war against nationalism, against self-determination. Does it mean that Andre or Alex or Matt Drudge or Donald Trump that we're offering a utopia ourselves? No. We're offering the real struggle of free market that does build people up and being able to practice your religion or not or whatever, not being colonized by globalists. But riveting radio here, just briefly. They're trying to shut us down, as you know. They won't even let us advertise on Google, which is like 90% of advertising online. They're shutting us down all over the place. But despite that, we've had all these new TV stations picking us up, UHF, VHF cable. I don't want to create a list of them because they'll get harassed for doing it. But people know what's happening. So the Streisand effect is in play where they're trying to suppress us, and it's causing an explosion. But we've got high-quality nutraceutical supplements like Cell Force, 53% off. It's really going to be called DNA Force Plus, stronger than DNA Force, but lower price. We've got the pollen block about to sell out. We've got the shirt of the month, Trump Pence, a true vision for the future. Brain Force, 25% off, and a bunch of other specials that are about to end because we're selling out of the pollen block. We're going to sell out of Cell Force very soon. It's going to be called DNA Force Plus when it comes in. But regardless, just shop with the good guys, and you override their economic war on us, their sanctions against InfoWars. That's what it is. And their attempts to shut us down. And by the way, it's not just financial. And you know what? I'm proud of it. I'm not glad it happened. I feel sorry for my family. I feel sorry for my mother. She's tough, but she's like, good God. I mean, we were having dinner about a month ago, and she goes, is it really worth all this? Because I'm not going to give them the pleasure of getting into what's going on. There's criminal investigations into them as well because they're so desperate. They've done a lot of crimes. But, I mean, they've spent $10 million, we confirm. We even got people on tape admitting it, through Soros groups just to try to destroy me on the ground. But I'm such a recluse because I just work and then go home with my family that they haven't been able to do anything, and they're really pissed off. I'm just telling you right now, what you've seen happen to Steven Seagal, they've tried all that with me. There's just nothing there because I'm so boring, okay? I'm in bed by 9 o'clock at night. So I'm just telling you, there is a real war, okay? And whatever they cook up, I'm not even worried if they kill me, whatever. It just matters you continue moving on. We're going to win because this is pure evil. And we can't turn future generations over to this because they'll do what they did in communist China, killing 85 million people, or killing tens of millions of Christians and others in Russia and surrounding areas. That's what they like. If Bernie Sanders or Hillary Clinton get full control, pissing on us and strangling us politically and spiritually and having our children and just feeding on good people is what these vampires do. This is a cult of evil. It's a French Revolution Jacobin system. I've had top historians on, economists, you name it. They all agree it is a Jacobin spirit. So we've got 7 minutes left in this segment, then one more with our guest. He's an amazing guest. I'm glad Daria got him on the show. Yes, and out of 100-plus people here, we have one evil Russian who I'm proud to have here, whose family moved over here. We're anti-communist, and she's worked for our military at the highest levels of the Army. She don't want me to get into that, but she's not trusted either, even though, she's been in special operations and all of it. No, she's a great asset, and we're proud to have a Russian working here. She's one of our best crew members. We'd be proud to have more. But again, I'm not going to let all this Russia-phobia thing manipulate me into, developing into a war. So let's get into any other key points. Let's get into Meet the Playboy model running against Putin that they've wound up and her whole background and the positive and the negative here, Andre.
Yes. So tomorrow at Washington, Ksenia Sobchak will deliver a speech at one of the major think tanks related to Georgetown Institute. So the thing is that Vladimir Putin didn't destroy all the globalists here in Russia because, well, technically it's impossible if you do this in the framework of rights and in the framework of a society that respects the rights and the freedoms that Russia is now. We have the freedom of speech, we have the freedom of religion, we have the freedom of possession. So, and it's not always you can catch them by hand and take them to jail. So, and
they claim Russia's persecuting everybody, which isn't true, but the left's calling for all of us to be banned and Germany's arresting people that criticize the government. They're the ones censoring, not Putin.
Yes, definitely. And I can tell you as a Russian journalist that we have all the spectrum of opinions in major media. We have major federal channels sponsored and funded.
But correct me if I'm wrong, just no one foreign funded, which is totally reasonable.
Yes, and I can also tell you that, to my mind, the only reason why globalists work so hard to block U.S. and Trump supporters from being in better relations with Russia is because Russian experience is the key to success of Trump team and Trump supporters, because Vladimir Putin and his supporters here in Russia that are more than 82% now, according to sociologists, support Vladimir Putin.
Exactly. Putin delivered a recovery. Trump does it. Nationalism, families back, and we win. And the whole nightmare doesn't have to happen like you went through.
Definitely. So, Alex, I just want to ask, as a journalist, it's really interesting for me. I want to ask you, how come a representative of globalists like Ksenia Sobchak goes to U.S.? It makes me, it's a real.
I was about to say, she's here right now to launch at the National Press Club her operation to try. Imagine if Trump went to Russia to launch his campaign. This is incredibly revealing. Putin rival comes to the U.S. to the Trump prayer breakfast, invited in so that they can somehow try to embarrass Trump.
Definitely. And I can tell you that as a candidate for presidency, and you know that we're now in a state of a presidential campaign and we have elections in March, it's really disappointing because usually Russia is blamed for meddling and for trying to influence some kind of elections in any country. And it's absolute nonsense. And I, as a journalist, have documents that prove that
Soros said he spent $5 billion to overthrow Ukraine and is actually trying to... No, I watched Fareed Zakaria. They go, we're trying to overthrow Russia. And then the Russia, I look, is doing nothing because I don't see any Russian action. The bots are all fake. Exactly. She's over here being funded by the globalist to try to overthrow a country they want to gang rape some more. And while they're upset, we might get out of their grips as well.
Definitely, and it's a pity because for ordinary Americans that are not so deep enough into politics, she will be the representative of Russian people. That is not true. She does not represent the majority, just like globalists do not represent the real Americans.
And I notice she's all cleaned up now. She's not dressed like a prostitute now. She's wearing more of a business suit outfit. What's her family background, though? I heard her dad was pro-Putin.
Well, it's not that he was pro-Putin, but back in 90s, they worked together. And then Vladimir Putin changed his opinion, I think. As a journalist, it's my personal opinion, because, well, in 90s, there was no other choice. And Vladimir Putin and his policies were reaction to what happened in 90s.
Sure. Correct me if I'm wrong. You had foreign outside powers like we have with the globalists, same people, controlling your nation, trying to keep it poor to control it, and Putin wanted prosperity and a Russian revival.
Yes, definitely, but you must understand that even though Russia is now maybe the most non-globalist and claimed from globalist country, still a lot of people, especially in elites, share these views, and we have a lot of networks. Oh,
you're totally infested. In fact, Soros admits that tens of billions have been spent trying to overthrow Russia. That's public. So, but they just think Americans are ignorant. How much do you know is that we know has the U.S., the captured U.S., the Soros combine spent trying to overthrow Russia?
Definitely, these numbers are billions, and we must understand that the numbers that you named are just the official numbers that go through a white accounting, and we know that there are a lot of black money, like CIA money, that they usually get from criminal operations.
And we know also, the globalists have hijacked the CIA, but there's a lot of CIA that doesn't like what's happening, is actually pro-national and sovereign. That's why they're so scared. We'll come back from break and talk about the civil war inside the intelligence agencies on the other side. This is incredibly important information. Again, one of the top journalists, top political analysts, big national TV shows in Russia is our guest. Andrei Afanasyev will join us on the other side. We'll put some of his websites on screen for TV viewers. But actually hearing from the Russians of the renaissance that's happened and why Hollywood hates them like a passion. Just like they hate flyover country. They hate Christians, period.
From the front lines of the information war, it's Alex Jones.
Andrei Afanasyev is our guest for 2 more segments, then Doug Hagman's taking over. In fact, partway in the next segment, here in about 12 minutes. But I know you're a political scientist, host some big national TV shows in Russia. Obviously a smart guy. You can speak English, I can't speak Russian. And I've watched it, I've read your material, and I'm not really a Russophile, I'll be honest. Not an Anglophile either. I'm kind of a Renaissance Americaphile. But I see a Renaissance in Russia, as Trump has said, and they demonize him as being a Russian agent for saying, hey, I admire the success, the nationalism, the turning things around, despite all the sanctions. In this little short segment, the next, Alexander Solzhenitsyn, Putin claims he liked some of the writings. I ended up not just reading Gulag Archipelago, but 3 other books that he translated into English, and it just seemed like pure veritas from my own experiences in life and historical research. So what got Putin, I know he's underground Christian, his family still practiced it and everything, but talking about the transformation, how did they not see Putin? How did this happen? Because the proof's in the pudding. How did this unfold to where Putin has been the preeminent world leader for at least a decade? Trump admits that and sees that, and now that he's become nationalist, boom, he's right there with Putin, maybe even in a year already eclipsing that. Not that and notice they still haven't met, though, in their own big summit. I think Trump should meet and break it all in a big, huge summit, in Reykjavik again or something, to just break the trance and say it's okay to be friends with Russia, and then share the facts. But that's next segment. We got 3 minutes to break, short segment. Talk about Putin, who he really is, his real policies, versus what we're told in controlled globalist media here in the U.S.
Well, first of all, Vladimir Putin is a Russian patriot. He loves Russia and does everything to make our country secure. It doesn't mean that he executes some kind of aggressive policies. First of all, Russia does not need it, but we need to defend ourselves. For example, usually the West says that Russia annexed Crimea. That's absolutely not true, because in Ukraine, in late 2013, globalists launched a pro-EU, pro-Western, pro-globalist, pro-NATO coup to overthrow the legitimately elected government, and they succeeded. This coup brought to power ultra-right Nazis, controlled and funded by Soros and groups related to him. And these people say that they are Ukrainians and they have nothing to do with Russians. And Crimea was the most Russian region of ex-Ukraine. So the first thing they started doing is sending special radical terrorist groups to provocate and put under control Crimea, because under the
same deal. They were shooting cops, burning things down. Same thing Antifa does, but much worse.
Definitely. So Ukraine was a neutral country. It wasn't so pro-globalist or pro-nationalist. It was just a country in between Russia and EU. But it appeared thanks to Bolsheviks. Bolsheviks created it because there was no Ukraine before 1917. Used to be part of Russia. Yes, it was just part of Russia. And Bolsheviks wanted to make the revolution global. And for that, they needed to show to peoples of the world that there are different countries.
They could break pieces off from Russia itself to then play games there.
So they just put Russia into parts, and that's it. So Vladimir Putin is just a person that wants security for our people. So, if you have a globalist and pro-Soros coup d'etat in a neighboring country, and what would you do? And if part of this country says, all right, this government is not legitimate, we've held a referendum and want to join you, please defend us. What would you do?
Well, stay there, because it's the same thing happened in the 2000s and in the 90s, where the Clintons attacked Serbia multiple times, bombed the South. It was going to be like Texas, Louisiana, right up into Indiana. They take a third of the country, give it to Muslims who invade out of Albania, who engage in ethnic cleansing. And then finally Russia landed, and they were going to take the whole country at Pristina and said no further, and they said that was aggression. No, they were going to turn the whole Christian country over and kill everybody. Syndicating very, very soon on radio and TV. He's already got a viral program. Been interviewing him for more than a decade. He's going to be taking over here in about 10 minutes. We have Andrei Afanasyev joining us, who's a big national TV host in Russia, and who is exposing that multinational mega banks, just like McCarthy said, that's been declassified even by the Russians, he was right, funded communism as a way to con the serfs of Europe and Russia from one agrarian system that had some controls that I would call authoritarian, but they were really just ancient, onto a new system of total control. And they all bragged about this, and they did it. And scholars, we're talking, I don't want to say Nobel Prize winners, because that's embarrassing now. People like Alexander Solzhenitsyn reverse engineered all this, but before Solzhenitsyn, before I even read his books, I had reverse engineered it because, and I'm not putting him down, I'm saying it's true. I didn't read it from Solzhenitsyn. I read that and learned more. That the exact crap you see at the universities and everywhere else, and the MSNBC saying you can't have churches or families, they said that to Trump. You don't get that. They had a woman on TV going, you don't get that. And these are commissars that are going to stand over us as political officers and gang rapists. And so, in closing, I want you to get back into how they're allied with radical Islam, these globalists, how we defeat them, concerns you've got, and I know we don't want to be critical overall. Trump has enemies. You know him by his enemies. He's trying, but they have bullied him into accelerating conflict with Russia, threatening huge new sanctions, and Putin just says, well, that's not very friendly, as it was Russia helped us right after 9/11. Russia helped us take out ISIS more than we did. I mean, it's not like groveling to Russia. I've never been there. It's the truth. And then to sit there and watch Hollywood and these Bolsheviks piss all over everybody, and then sit there and just kind of, get a brownie point, so I don't get called a Russian agent by not talking to Russians. I'm not doing it. I'm not going to be bullied into it. And the only area that I'm worried about Trump is the fact that he has gone from being very open, very conciliatory, very smart. Look at the resources of Russia. Good God, it's a perfect match. It's what America needs. It would be a dynamo. The globalists fear that. They've always feared it. So you got the floor the last few minutes here. I really appreciate you joining us.
Yes, Alex. So definitely we're now in a situation where Donald Trump somehow needs to fight for area, fight for space, because he is surrounded. Just like Vladimir Putin was surrounded in 1999. He came to power in a country that was totally controlled by transnational corporations and liberal structures. For example, all our natural resources, oil and gas, were not owned by the state or by state-run companies. They are all owned by transnational companies. And it took about 4 years to take it back. Can you imagine that all the oil of the United States, all the Texan oil, is owned by, Dutch company? It's the state of my country. I remember it. It was like 13 years ago. So, and it took time. It took time to fight these networks. And for example, the famous Munich speech of Vladimir Putin at Munich conference, it was the first challenge of globalism from a national leader of a big country, happened 7 years after Putin came into office. So we definitely need the second term for Donald Trump team, because it took us Russians 7 years to start the process.
And by the way, and now the dominoes are falling. So Russia deserves the credit for kicking the dominoes over, and the globalists admit that. That's not refuted, and they say it with horror. You got cut off by a break 30 minutes ago. I'm glad you mentioned that. What about the meeting, the picnic with the oligarchs early on?
Yes, so it was a famous meeting with oligarchs, like maybe a year after Putin came into power, and he declared officially and openly to them the new rules, saying that all the major businessmen or oligarchs, as we say, need to become national and work for the interest of the state. Or if they keep on being globalists, the state will need to defend itself and the people from them. So the majority of them fled to London, and to other countries, but the majority of them are in London, like Boris Berezovsky. Some of them fled to Israel, like Mr. Gusinski. And I can tell you that all of them, it's funny, they all owned major media in the country. Berezovsky owned First Channel. It's like CNN. And Gusinski owned NTV. It's like...
and there were also lawsuits. It turned out a bunch of them were fronts for the Rothschilds. The Rothschilds sued, and then in court, the judges said, no, it turns out the Rothschilds have been running Russia for 80 years.
Yeah, definitely. And still, for example, our central bank does not report to our government. And it's a big problem because the globalists are doing everything.
That's key. You're saying 18 years later, Russia still hasn't drained the swamp fully.
We're still 1 foot in the swamp. We have our army. We have our special services. We have our foreign ministry. But the economy and the finance, where the globalists are the strongest, is still a problem.
Well, I was about to say next, it's funny because I was always critical of our special services. I knew it was infiltrated and run by bad guys. But it was in this last election, they saw it was all real. It was the military, it was good elements of the CIA and other agencies that actually got the intel out. WikiLeaks, it wasn't the Russians. And all of it, and actually that's now the main line with Trump is the military, particularly the Army and the Marine Corps now, against the globalists to return the country. It's not that they're perfect. They just think America should run America. We're not going to use it to fund world government. We're not going to be used like Russia to do all this. I mean, they use that as an example. They know. How can they ever go back now, Andre, now that the cat's out of the bag, now that the program's out?
Well, Alex, the main objective for all of us, for all the people here in Russia, for all of you fellow Americans who support nationalism and tradition and Christianity, is installing public relations with each other without globalists. We need to create our own networks to deliver truth. I am like ultra imperialist, in a good way, Russian who supports Russian empire. And I tell you, Americans, please be sovereign and strong. I don't tell you be weak. I don't tell you that we want to conquer you. I tell you be strong and defend your national interests and not the interest of a bunch of globalist oligarchs. That's the difference. We all need to be strong. We all need to defend our national interests. It doesn't mean that Russia and US always have the same interests, but we need to discuss them as national sovereign countries and not as different departments of a big transnational corporation. That's how they want to see us.
And by the way, I
urge America to be strong.
Absolutely. I watch some of the Putin speeches and things, and he says the same thing. Be strong. Take your country back. And once you do, we want to do business with you. We have a lot of resources. We're ready for business. It sounds like the Wild Wild. It sounds like John Wayne saying, let's do business and let's be Christian. And that's what pisses off Hollywood. It's so obvious, Andre. It's sick.
Well, definitely. And the more we talk about that, the more we expose them. Both here in Russia, we still have a lot of problems. You see Ksenia Sobchak is coming to Washington.
Now, you have your own problems, but I noticed that they said, oh, Putin really wanted Hillary. Well, he hedged his bets. I watched the Duma when Trump won. People were crying. They were celebrating. That's what I saw.
But we were happy not because Trump is a Russian agent. We were happy because Trump was a chance for us that globalists that control the United States would leave us alone and let us live the lives we want to live. And that's the point.
Well, that's right. And my God, I couldn't imagine how many Russians and Ukrainians and Poles did the leftists that took control from the U.S. kill. I mean, I actually feel like we should apologize to Russia, even though I wasn't alive then, that America let the leftists come over there and gang rape the hell out of you.
Well, unfortunately, it was also made on American money, on the globalist money. We know that Trotsky came to Russia from New York, where he has relatives.
That's right. It's all historic, and now they run the neocons. We're all going to come together, though, to defeat this. All right, Andre Afanasyev, thank you. Well, come back on David Knight, on any of the shows, any of the broadcasts. We want to have you on with the War Room, you name it. Very powerful truth. Welcome back. It's Doug Hagman, syndicated TV and radio host, incredible intel source. there on the East Coast. The president giving a speech at one of the new factories that's expanding here in the United States as we see record acceleration of our economy after just a few of the globalist constraints have been removed. Talking about we have them. We have them now. We've caught them with the memo. 5 new memos coming out, as we told you. This is just the blueprint of the treason. Then we get them to lie in the media. Then we release the new information exposing them. Not that we're masterminds. The 5D chess is we're not lying. The 5D chess is we mean well. The 5D chess is we're not out to screw you. And these criminals never get that. They think they're so smart being criminals. They don't get just being straight shooting is what built America and not being cowards. So here's the president.
I think everybody's going to be supportive. We need people that are going to do a great job and keep us in the right direction. You know? Yeah. We need them badly, too. Or it all goes back to where it was and worse. Oh, but did we catch them in the act or what? You know what I'm talking about. Oh, did we catch them in the act? They are very embarrassed. They never thought they were going to get caught. We caught them. Hey, we caught them. Oh, it's so much fun. We're like the great sleuth.
Nothing succeeds like success. I'm going to turn this over to Doug Hagman. I appreciate hosting this hour. We had that incredible guest that ran over, but I can't wait to hear what he has to say. We're not out of the woods yet, but let me tell you something. We were getting our ass handed to us. They're getting their ass handed to them right now. As long as we continue to move forward with that spirit, we are unstoppable. Doug Hagman, what you got coming up today for us?
Tell you what, I'm going to lay out some info that we have not heard yet. The difference between Title I and Section 702. Donald Trump saying that we got him. Boy, do we ever have him. And it's worse than people really believe. So I'm going to break this down. Also, the 5 different memos you're talking about, get into that a little bit more. Information packed. Just looking forward to the next few segments.
Doug, let's talk about the president's statement then. We have you now. Let's discuss where that goes and how they may strike back. Take over, my friend.
All right. Thanks, Alex. And I appreciate the opportunity to sit for you. I'm going to tell everyone right now, look, the evidence is undeniable. The Nunes memo that was released last Friday, of course, is just the start, just the tip of the iceberg. Because what is coming next, the underlying documentation, the foundational documents for that executive summary that we saw is going to be so damning, so critical, so it will infuriate even, I believe, even members of the left of center. That's how bad this is. This is an attempted takeover, as Alex has said, as David Nunes, as everyone has said. This is an attempted takeover of our country, of our Constitution, not just the president, not just the office of the presidency, but of every one of us to reverse the election and also to install the globalists. Now, if you listen to the last hour with Andre from Russia, so much important information there and how this all ties together, because at the root of everything, it's the globalists. It's the people who are attempting to manufacture and orchestrate and whether through warfare or I mean, bombs, bullets, or ink. Or it used to be ink, I guess, but now the excitement of electrons over the airwaves. What we're seeing is now the pushback against the orchestration of the globalists. And now it's all coming apart. The wheels are coming off their globalist bus. George Soros is driving in the globalist bus, and the wheels are coming right off. I mean, you get that, and we're winning. We are winning, and and that's a good thing. The globalists are afraid. They're scared. We've got them on the run. And a critical component to all of this is knowledge. And I've gotten a lot of emails over this past weekend from people who said, really appreciate everything that you're saying. Really appreciate everything Alex is saying. But what are we going to do about it? Well, exactly what we're doing about it. This is, as Alex says, an information war. And we need to get in front of the information. We need to keep educating the people, our neighbors, our friends, our colleagues. The people will listen. We can win on the numbers, and we will win on the numbers. Don't ever give up. We have to unite, and we have to present a united front. And the fact is, this war is really going hot. What I have discovered and what the information with respect to Fisa surveillance, it has so bad. You think it's bad? You haven't heard how bad it actually is or was. There was a piece by Cheryl Atkinson this weekend. The difference between a Section 702, the traditional FISA surveillance, versus a Title I surveillance, and what happened to Carter Page. When you hear this, when you hear the results from this, when you understand exactly what they have done with respect to Carter Page, what Lynch and Comey, but it all lies at the desk of Obama. When you hear what they have done and how they entrapped Carter Page and others within the Donald Trump concentric circles of influence, you will be astounded, you will be amazed, and you will be angered, because this information, I'm bringing you a lot of information. So getting right into it, Cheryl Atkinson, and this was reported by the Conservative Treehouse as well. Cheryl Atkinson had made a very important distinction about what the memo, the executive summary memo, really got into. And inside the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence, that memo, a key distinction that has been conflated, or people really are not understanding, the difference between a Title I versus a Title VII surveillance. Now, you might think, oh, man, this is boring. Leave me alone. I don't want to hear this. No, you got to hear this, because, and it's not that difficult. It's simple. And look, I've been involved as an operational asset with the Department of Justice and the FBI back in the 90s. Forgive me for that, okay? But nonetheless, I understand what it takes to get a warrant. I understand what it takes to get a search warrant, to get a wiretapping warrant. I understand what it takes to go before a U.S. attorney. I understand as an operational asset, what it takes to verify my bona fides on a warrant application. Now, I'm not talking about a FISA warrant. I'm talking about a regular Title VII or a regular court, U.S. Magistrate Court warrant. So I get it. But what happened here, the process was not just short-circuited. What happened here was that the Department of Justice, the FBI, was so infiltrated by deep state operatives working exactly for Hillary Clinton.
That they turned off all the fail-safe controls and engaged in fraud.
There it is. And it wasn't an oops. This was we're going to do it this way. And this is exactly what happened. But the diabolical nature of this, Alex, is, I got to tell you, they took Carter Page in 2016 and just did not make him or describe him as a potential Russian asset. Title I designates him as a Russian spy, period, full stop. And what happens there, and as Cheryl Atkinson and Conservative Treehouse reported, he is like patient zero in an Ebola pandemic, because everyone he contacts, everyone he's got contact with, everyone who calls him, emails him.
They convicted him like he was Osama bin Laden.
Exactly. But not only just Carter Page. If I typed an email to you mentioning Carter Page, whether it's in the body or the subject line, because it's a Title I surveillance as opposed to Section 702, because we could...
It's a total dragnet. We're going to break. You're on fire. Doug Hagman, straight ahead. Stay with us. Spread the live links.
Waging war on corruption. Alex Jones.
It's the time of the season.
And welcome back. Doug Hagman sitting in for Alex. Thanks so much, Alex. I got a lot of stuff, a lot of information to get into. We also have a video clip coming up. Brian Stelzer saying the memo is an alternate reality created by Sean Hannity. Yeah, that's the ticket, right? As John Lovitz used to say. Well, speaking about the memo, look. The information that was uncovered by Cheryl Atkinson this weekend, and the information that was uncovered and really provided through a number of outlets, but not enough to really make a difference, is so incredibly important. And I want to get into that. There is a terrific distinction between what happened with Carter Page and with what is being said. Speaking of alternate realities, This is not created by Sean Hannity. The alternate reality is one that was created not by Sean Hannity, but by the progressives who wanted to overthrow and continue to want to overthrow our country. As a matter of fact, can we play that 54-second audio clip, Brian Stelter?
The memo, this entire memo thing, I know it's confusing, but it gives the Hannitys of the world an alternative reality to live in. It gives Trump a way to say he's vindicated even though he's not. It lets Trump allies say Mueller's probe is tainted and needs to be shut down. It allows them to turn every claim around on its head. Collusion? Yeah, there was collusion by the Democrats. Obstruction? Yeah, the Dems obstructed. It's like that old childhood schoolyard taunt. I'm rubber, you're glue. Whatever you say bounces off of me and sticks to you. Now, the current in vogue talking point is there is an important investigation going on, but it's not the investigation into Russian interference in the election. It's the investigation into the FBI. That's the alternative reality. And look, this campaign of confusion is good for Hannity. His ratings are way up. It's good for Trump as well, but it's bad for the country.
Okay, now everyone just heard what he said, right? It's undeniable. You talk about an alternative reality. I'll tell you what the alternative reality is. It's not from Sean Hannity. It's not from the right. It's not from Devin Nunes. It's not from the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence. The alternate reality is from the progressives attempting to rewrite history. And there was something said, which I thought was so amazing. There was a reference to Joe McCarthy, referencing Senator Joe McCarthy. It was in I think it was in a tweet by James Comey. Not too many schools. Remember this tweet? It was this past weekend. Not too many schools, not too many streets named after Joe McCarthy, meaning Senator Joe McCarthy from the McCarthy era back in post World War II. Now you just heard Andre from Russia, very interesting. Talking about the new Russia, or what Russia is today, and keep that in the back of your mind as you consider the Comey reference to Joe McCarthy. Now look, we have had problems in this country with the KGB, with the spy apparatus, the Russian spy apparatus, the old Soviet Russian spy apparatus in America. Senator Joe McCarthy proved this. The House Un-American Activities Committee proved this. Two separate things, often conflated, much like what is happening today is conflated. But think back in history. McCarthy, of course, McCarthyism, to be accused of McCarthyism. People right now are using that term in different areas, but really, Senator Joe McCarthy was correct. And there's a wonderful book by Diana West that she wrote, American Betrayal, that lays this all out. And of course, the Venona Secrets. Look, you've got to know history in order to understand the present. This is what we're seeing today. We have seen, or what we saw in the past 8 years of the Obama regime. I don't even want to call it an administration. The infiltration by hostile foreign countries into our State Department, into our government apparatus, multiple agencies. That's not alternate reality. That's reality, period. And that needs to be investigated. That has taken form, taken shape of the things like the dossier, the 35-page piece of garbage out there that is reported as news or as valid.
Absolutely, Doug. And Doug Hagman here hosting the fourth hour, just breaking in. We were following this earlier just an hour ago, and the stock market was only down 600 points, which is still big. It dropped 1,600 points today, which is one of the biggest drops ever, and then rebounded 800 points, but it's still 800 points down. And Doug, you talk about deep state operations. You talk about Goldman Sachs, J.P. Morgan that have been working against the president. Even though they've had record profits, they openly cheerlead for communist China. This is the type of craziness we've been saying will come as he and as we stand up against the deep state actors and all the rest of it. So this is an amazing time to be alive. Right now, we're going to follow this right through with you the next 30 minutes, right into the war room with Owen Schroyer, myself, and others during all this. But again, Infowars.com, Newswars.com, the latest coverage. 1,600 is like 1,580-something point. 1,600 if you wrap it up from way up there at 26,000 down to, close to 24,000. This is a big, big deal. And again, this is economic warfare undoubtedly against this president. They've been trying as hard as they can. There he is touring the country, getting thousands of factories back. And now this happens. You better believe something this big is meant to embarrass him on his big economic tour he's involved in. It was Lloyd Blankfein, the head of Goldman Sachs, that heads up the New World Order, that said a few months ago, oh, I was in China. Their industry's much bigger. How's your industry, how's your infrastructure week going? This is the economic war in our country right now. So going back to Doug Hagman.
Fantastic points. And the economy, the money, we are just going to kill the dollar from 5, 6 years ago, 7 years ago. This is blowback by the deep state. You're absolutely right. An incredible time to be alive to witness this. And of course, the controls by the deep state include the dollar, the purchasing power of our dollar, the food, everything that this is absolute blowback, and I think it's designed, obviously, to really take everyone's attention away from really what's important. Of course, this is important, but it's more of a symptom than the actual problem. Man, 15, imagine 20 years ago, 30 years ago, I remember sitting actually outside of a bank 30 years ago, watching bankers come out of this bank. It was October of '87, I believe it was, and the Dow had dropped, I think, 300 points. It was just imagine today. That was nothing compared to today. So we have to keep our eye on what's taking place. Watch the blowback. The blowback is incredibly important. So, and Alex, thank you very much for keeping me informed on this. By the way, if I got a comment the other day. It was Saturday, saying, hey, you know what? You sounded pretty good on InfoWars. And I told him, I said, man, you got to try. I just have to mention this. The Real Red Pill. I got to tell you, I don't know what's in that, but go to InfoWars store. You got to get this product, the Real Red Pill, and Self-Force. Look, this stuff really works. I can see through walls. I know I can't, but you get the idea. The Real Red Pill, as well as Self-Force, which is on sale right now. Limited time sale on Self-Force by InfoWars, 53% off discount, $69.95. You can't beat that. I take it. I feel great. Never felt better before in my life. So make sure you visit InfoWars store. Purchasing that not only helps you, it helps people like InfoWars, entities like InfoWars, and us stay on the air. So getting back to this issue, I happen to think, too, 33,942 surveillance warrants were granted in a 33-year period. Talking about numbers with respect to the stock market and such. Think about this. The Fisa court was established back in 1979, I believe it was. I'm going from memory here. The only note I've got is this number, 33,942. That's the number of surveillance warrants that were actually issued. You know how many were denied in that 33-year period? 12, which represents a 0.03% denial rate. Incredible. One denied, of course, henceforth later on. This is unbelievable. I just heard music. Am I on my way out there? Okay. All right, folks. You're listening to InfoWars. Doug Hagman sitting. Sorry about that. Got insanity in my ears. Remember that? One real important distinction, and we are ahead. I believe Infowars.com, Hagman Report, Alex Jones, myself, we are ahead of the curve on this. Watch for discussions now of a couple of things. Additional memos coming out, the investigation moving from the Department of Justice and the FBI. There will be additional information coming out along with the foundational documents of that. But watch for the investigation. And by the way, the OIG, Mike Horowitz, but watch for the investigation of the Department of State. This coming out is going to be absolutely earth-shaking, as much as perhaps the Department of Justice and the FBI. But the other takeaway is I believe the unintentional conflation, or perhaps the fact that many people are not recognizing the extent of the surveillance as depicted by the Nunes memo. You heard all weekend, as I did. Man, I'll tell you what, my ears were bleeding really from listening to so many audio clips and watching so many pundits talk about what really happened. But when you really get to it, I've not heard anyone mention this outside of Cheryl Atkinson. When you really get down to it, there's a key distinction about this that's being overlooked. It's by many who are talking out there, and that is in the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence. It specifically notes that the targeting of U.S. individual Carter Page was not, I'm underlining this, was not a FISA Title VII search request. The Title VII FISA 702 that we hear so much about it references the incidental collection of U.S. persons' information as it relates to national security. No, this was a Title I. This warrant request was a Title I, and it was made on October 21st, 2016. Again, under Title I of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, meaning that the surveillance application was specifically stating to the court, to the FISA court, the U.S. individual was likely an actual agent of a foreign government, a spy. This is what Carter Page is dealing with. This is what the October 2016 FISA warrant was. This is the October 2016 FISA warrant. Now consider what they're saying here, and not only that, consider the ramifications from this, because we're not talking just surveillance over Carter Page and any incidental collection along with the unmasking. That would be bad enough. We are talking about something totally different here at a new level of horrendous. That is a Title I FISA warrant. And I'll tell you how horrendous this is. If you're out there and you type an email, for example, that mentions Carter Page, yes, you, a private citizen, you could be caught up in this dragnet. Think about Carter Page as he was doing business in Moscow with Merrill Lynch, and then a minor advisor on the Donald Trump team. Think about everyone he had contact with. What this Title I warrant did was put a giant bullseye on every person that ever shook hands, essentially, with Carter Page. This is the difference between a 702 warrant and a Title I warrant. If you go away from this segment without anything else, understand how important the distinction is. This requires the National Security Division, by the way, and the FBI, the Counterintelligence Division. This requires an entirely new level of proof, well beyond anything that the FISA court or the 702 requires. They were not just asking to review the ancillary data collected on the U.S. person as an outcome of surveillance on a foreign. No, that would be Title VII. That would be, and we got to understand the difference. It sounds confusing, but it's really not. Title VII, FISA 702, that's one thing. Title I is something totally different. And in this action outlined within the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence, in that memo, the Department of Justice and the FBI they were telling the FISA court that they had evidence that the U.S. citizen, Carter Page, was working as an agent of a foreign government. Think Robert Hansen, even beyond that perhaps, at that level, that accusation level, which is why we're seeing the pushback by Carter Page, because it's one thing to be caught up in a surveillance or to be named in a surveillance. It's another to be identified as a Russian hostile agent, and that's what happened here. Now, the title, he was their target, and therefore a direct target of the FISA Title I surveillance on October 21st, 2016. And to give validity to the underlying position of the Department of Justice and the FBI, the Justice Department used the Clinton Steele dossier, media reports from and of the Clinton Steele dossier. And this is not, pay attention, this is where the Department of State is going to come in. Yes, I understand it's 2016. Yes, I understand that Hillary Clinton left the Department of State in 2013. But the carryovers, John Kerry, for example, the policies and procedures, as well as the input. Don't think that Hillary Clinton just left and had no other contact. No, this goes beyond 2013, her 2013 departure, but I digress. But this also involves Nellie and Bruce Orr. this is how it all fits together. You got to get a flow chart almost. So in total, this was a very sketchy, very ad hoc assembly of political campaign research, disguised as intelligence and not even disguised very well, all with the authorship of Hillary Rodham Clinton. And the kicker is this. This leads all the way up to Barack Hussein Obama. I'm going to tell you right now, Obama knew. Obama was okay with it at the very least, or had some level of direction. I think we're going to find the latter as opposed to the former. Now, without knowing the court had been provided political research, the FISA court granted the FBI full surveillance authority under Title I of Carter Page. And what that did was that acted like a domino, and that was like a tripwire for the rest of the surveillance that was conducted. So Comey, look, we know Comey lied in his testimony. We know Comey lied when he put his John Hancock on that FISA warrant. We know that Rod Rosenstein and Sally Yates intentionally deceived the FISA court. This is me saying this from my personal research and my personal investigation, but this goes much deeper and much wider. And this is by orders of magnitude far greater than Watergate could ever be. Any comparison to Watergate should never ever be. This is a dictatorship move by Barack Hussein Obama, conspiring with his Department of Justice, his FBI. And I know you might be getting tired of hearing about this, but let me tell you, the details, the devil is really in the details in this. And when the details come out, and trust me when I tell you this, when the details come out of how bad this is, that memo was just the Nunes memo, just giving a little bit of information in terms of the underlying documentation. When you see, and I've talked to an FBI agent who spoke, well, I guess I'll just say this. I've talked to an FBI agent who spoke with the staff of one of the committee members who saw the underlying documentation, and it is brutal. I'll just share that with you. It's brutal, and when it comes out, it's gonna hit like a thud. You heard that audio clip about Sean Hannity, and this is Sean Hannity's alternate reality. No. This is actually information that Sean Hannity will be leading off with. You're ahead. You are ahead in the information war right now by listening to InfoWars. You're ahead in the information war as you listen, of course, to this segment. And I've got to tell you, what's coming next is going to be something critical. Watch the stock market. Watch the ups and downs of the stock market, the volatility there. Watch what happens, because there's blowback. Make sure your seat backs and tray tables are in their full upright and locked position, because it's going to get bumpy out there. I'm going to tell you, Doug Hagman sitting in for Alex, InfoWars. Tune into InfoWars tomorrow, 11 to 3 Central Time. I'm Doug Hagman on HagmanReport.com, Doug Hagman Radio Show, and you've just been informed. This is fantastic. I just want to thank each and every one of you for being with us. And as I said, this is going to be an incredible.
You're listening to The Alex Jones Show.